just when I think you couldn't possibly be any dumber, you go and do something like this. And totally redeem yourself!
Yo, what's up, internet? And this is three averagely intelligent dudes discussing dangerous ideas, and we're back again with another episode. How you living today, John?
Boy,
Yeah.
I'm living great. Mac's back. We've been waiting 2 weeks. Mac had a little vacay.
Mac is back from the vacay.
Yeah. How was vacay? Talk to us about it.
Vacay was awesome. Went to multiple national parks. Went to Mesa Verde National Park. Went to Black Canyon of the Gunnison National Park.
That sounds badass.
Yeah.
Black Canyon of the Gunnison.
Yeah, that sounds
Dude.
like a map in StarCraft 2 Brood Wars.
It was crazy cool. Was up in Colorado and stuff.
Yeah.
Drove a big ass 32-foot RV Class C through the $1 Million highway.
What brand did?
It was a Thor Outlaw 2020.
Okay.
Did not like it.
No.
No.
Trash.
Very trash. Very trash RV. Do not get the Thor 2020 29J. Do not buy it.
What was it? Because of the features, or was it like that one was just broken?
Well, I think that they just didn't do like. It wasn't good for me and Pappy because it was very small, being a Class C with the thing at the top. So like me and Pappy whacked our heads like I don't know how many times walking around just throughout the whole time we were in this. Just, wow.
You wouldn't suggest it to like normal size height males?
Well, I don't know. What's the normal size?
I don't know. Like, what are you, like 5'8", 5'9"?
I am 5'11".
You're 5'11"?
Okay, well 5'10". Yeah, I would not say if you're 5'10" and above, I would not say that you should get a Class C RV. Unless you get one of those Super Cs, which my dad was telling me about, which are on the chassis of an 18-wheeler truck rather than like a Ford 450.
Sounds dope.
Yes, it was very cool.
It's a good way to tour some national parks.
Why'd you call it the $1 Million Highway?
I did not call it that. That's what it's called. The $1 Million Highway. You can look it up. It is sketch as fuck in a 32-foot RV, let me tell you. There's a whole section where you're on the edge of the cliff and there's like no guardrails or anything.
Really?
Yeah. It was really...
and that's in Colorado?
Mm-hmm. Yep. It was on the way down from Ouray. There's like a silver mine and a cool little town there. And on like when you go from Ouray back down the mountainside, it's like...
Yep. And you're just ready to tumble that hoe right off the side of it. Dude, that's crazy to think.
It was super. I was filming. I filmed some stuff for Pappy. And I'm going to put together a little like video of him doing the $1 Million Highway and shit.
Yeah.
It's like a really popular thing for motorcyclists to do.
Oh,
there was tons of people riding on motorcycles.
Yeah, just ripping it. He brought the motorcycle too, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that's
it's
cool.
a toy hauler, so we had the motorcycle. It was
That's
cool.
fun. I saw him and Mom's on it. Yeah, that was a family vacation. I didn't know.
Sounds like you had a blast.
It was really cool. Yeah.
National
I mean, like
parks
if
is just a really cool thing to do.
Exactly. Like if you're not prone to like doing anything outdoors, it wouldn't have been cool. But I love that kind of stuff. So we were hiking, and like me and Pappy did some fishing. Which didn't really work, but
really caught nothing.
No, well, I forgot, but like when we got there, I remembered all the stuff in Colorado is mostly like fly fishing. Oh, it's like really big fly fishing country out there, so they didn't really have any like regular fishing tackle.
Yeah, where you could
but also we were just borrowing some rods from one of their friends, and like they were just some shitty bait casters, and so like I didn't really re-spool the whole thing, so we were fucking with tangled line. It was classic quintessential fishing experience with my father. It was great.
Yeah.
Didn't catch shit. Fucked with line longer than we casted.
Yeah.
The nostalgia was just dripping on that.
Oh,
one.
yeah.
It was just
great.
like old times.
Dude. Mom's was just sitting in the car waiting for us.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah, that sounds classic.
Oh, man.
Well, we missed you tremendously here. I mean, we've just been
too.
itching, dude. I mean, so it's been about 2 weeks since we sat down in these chairs, and so much shit just happened.
Man, the whole world has changed.
Yeah, it feels that way,
drastically.
right?
And it happens every 2 weeks now.
Yeah. One of the big things was
I actually disagree. I'm sorry to cut you off, but I disagree with that.
Yeah.
I think it's actually not that different. Like when I came back, like there was like people were talking about different things, but I didn't feel any different. Like it didn't actually feel like anything different was happening.
I like where you're going with this, because we talked about this often when there was a lot of protesting and rioting, and there was just like a lot of social unrest. But you could still kind of like step outside your house, like where majority of people were, and just look around, and there was nothing going on. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
I remember
your
that conversation,
neighborhood
yeah.
was like almost exactly the same.
We were like, hey, we're safe inside of our bubble. Why is everybody talking about
Right.
everyone dying on the street?
Right. But the culture we live in now, where, you know, it's like, this kind of leads into what we wanted to talk about a little bit too, which is social media, or the social world, the internet. The culture, I guess, can really feel high paced, and like things are constantly changing.
We're doing a
in the
digital
world.
avatar deep dive in this episode.
I would call it something like that.
Yeah.
I watched the documentary Social Dilemma. Did you guys watch it yet?
I did.
I've watched part of it. I fell asleep.
Yeah.
I got into the later stages of it where you could start to see a little bit of bias creep in.
Oh, it starts to creep in at the end there. Fucking deep, bro.
Right around that time when
Yeah.
they're starting to make conclusions.
Yes.
I don't know. I didn't get to that part. I fell
It's also
asleep.
telling a story too, so I think it does a documentaries when they tell stories like that with a fake cast of characters, which this has. It's like actors and actresses playing out like a realistic storyline. It's like you remember the old ones at the DMV where it's like, look at these people die in these wrecks. It's like Jimmy got a fast car. He was the leader of the high school quarterback.
Yeah.
Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it struck me as, is that kind of like terror on the highways. But it definitely made some solid points.
Oh,
and it made me
extremely
think
solid
a
points.
ton about stuff that I think about all the time already, but it just made really good points along. I had confirmation bias. So I agreed with a lot of the
things that they were
bringing up.
presenting. We have a lot of social media documentaries now. I don't know if you noticed. There's been like 5 of them, but this was one of the ones that hit me the most deeply, I guess, probably because it's majorly insiders, people who created the shit. And
that was a big deal.
Deep in it, and so that hit heavy, but definitely gets biasy towards the end a little bit. And it's so funny you mentioned it took me like 3 days to finish it too for some reason. But one of the big things that they were presenting was obviously data collection, right? And like the fact that these people, we talked about this plenty of times on the show, like what they're doing with your data. But I think the whole premise was that they were saying we're seeing a lot more division in our society because the social media algorithms are prone to pushing polarizing viewpoints and fake news and shit like that, right? And so I thought that was pretty interesting, but I thought they were a little off base with that, though. Like, I don't feel like that's a social media problem.
Yeah, I think one of the things that they touched on that actually resonated with me was the idea that, you know, because they're talking about all these things that social media does, like fake news and this and that, and they're touching on all these things, but they call it the loss of humanity. And it's like, that makes sense because we've talked about it before, like how communication through text and digital means has so much less meaning than a voice or a touch or an eye contact.
Right.
Yeah.
So this
It
loss
lacks a
of
lot
humanity
context.
is kind of like that was a good overarching theme I caught from it, was that, you know, we're not just dealing with fake news or radicals or, you know, division on polar opposite sides politically. All this is just systemic of the loss of humanity. It's like the loss of humanity is causing all these things to decay and rot. And
well, I think here's another way to look at it, in the sense that, and you and I have had many conversations about this, Rod, in the sense that, like, I look at social media as just like any other tool, in the sense that they are there to be used with as we desire. So however we use them is what we're deciding to do with them, as I see it. But
You definitely got to watch this docu.
well, I mean, I should finish it, but I'm just saying, like, the whole algorithms thing is like they're pointing to evidence of people becoming radicalized or falling deeper into like a thought bubble based on the algorithms. But I mean, like, again, we've talked about it plenty of times. If you were to try an experiment and just look up only one thing for many months at a time, the algorithm would begin to learn that you only want that one thing, and it'll change. And so I think that what really, it touches on your point too, John, in the sense that I think that we will miss the bigger picture here and not fix the actual problems that are within ourselves as human beings, and we'll focus on the social media platforms themselves and the people behind these companies.
I feel that.
And we'll try to fix the problem there because we're falsely diagnosing the cause. Like, that's just a symptom. Like, what we're seeing on the social media is a symptom of how we act as individuals when we are able to be anonymous and connected.
I gotta rebut that though, in the sense that they made this point directly in the thing, and this is something I wanted to bring up too. You say it's a tool, right? And it is, but they make the analogy of like the bicycle. When the bicycle comes around, it was just like, hey, here's a tool that can help you to do things in a more efficient, easier manner, right? But this is a tool that's specifically designed to be addictive, right? It's specifically engineered in a way to get you attached to it and to get you to use it as much as possible.
Right.
Whereas like your other tools don't do that. Like your table doesn't beckon you. You know what I mean? It's not like, hey, you need to be more table-like, right?
Yeah.
It's just there for you whenever you need it. And I think that that's one of the big problems that a lot of people were pointing to, and the reasons why they left that industry, and why I think I fear it most too, is because it's not just a tool. You know, it's like, I definitely agree it's how you use these things, but there's something they're hitting on your psychology so deep
It's
in
the
this.
ethics of addiction.
Right. It's
where
like,
they know they're addicting you, like Philip Morris, like
straight
Budweiser,
up,
or
like,
they know, they know, and they're doing everything they can to make sure they keep you there.
right.
Yeah.
And it's like when you have the knowledge, you do have some personal responsibility.
Yeah.
But if you're somebody who just gets a phone, right? Like, I got to go get a phone. So I go to Verizon, and it comes like preloaded with like, and this happens in like some third world countries where if you're in like Myanmar and you get a phone,
Yeah, they
it's
talk
preloaded
about
with Facebook, and the guy who sells you the phone is going to put your name in and make you an account. So it's like you're
That's
you're
fucking
already
weird.
you're already in.
Pitched to you with no like, hey, careful, this is highly addictive, or like, you know, this might, you know, it's tracking
like,
you,
hey,
or anything
40
like
bot.
that.
You give me 40 bot, I give you this phone. This phone right here is going to connect to the internet. You could talk to your ancestors in another country, blow your mind open. If you were somebody who didn't have a cell phone and that was pitched to you, you would take it. Like,
I bet. Yeah.
That's the biggest problem I see. Because, like, I mean, I look at it and I say, okay, well, look, I seen it as a tool. I saw it like, not only is this just something for me to waste my time on or entertain myself, but like, shoot, I could create a podcast. I can get my ideas out in the world.
YouTube has done wonders for us.
Right. Oh my God. It's given me all types of knowledge and information. So I did see it as a tool, but I also see the negative effects now too. Sometimes I catch myself just like, scroll on. Let me get more of those
Wait,
scrolls.
it's been 45
Like,
minutes.
you know,
I'm seeing the same thing again. Refresh.
And I feel the itch. Perfect example. Last night, I was going to take my dog out for a walk, and I was like, oh, better get my phone. And then I was like, wait, why do I need my phone? Like, what? But then I was like, you know, I'm leaving my phone. But immediately walking out of the door, I had this like, not like a bigging, but it was like this little itty bitty anxiety behind me of like, maybe I should have brought my phone.
What if
What if some shit pops
Yeah,
off out
and
here?
I was thinking, I was like, what would I have done with my phone if I had brought it with me? And I was like, well, I guess I was just gonna check my social medias and stuff, you know, scroll a little bit. But like, why can't I even just take it's less than 10-minute walk around the block with my dog without thinking, hey, I should scroll through some things while I do this.
You should enjoy watching your dog take a hot squatter. You should be watching.
You should be fully present for that moment.
You should be.
Every
It's like
time
the
it comes
birth
around.
of your first child.
Well, I think that this is like, if we focus on the social media itself, that's missing the point. Like, I think that if we focus on the kind of the questions that you were just asking like now, like, why can't you walk out the door for 10 minutes and feel like you don't need your phone?
Because you're addicted to it.
Right. It's because I'm addicted to it.
Right, but I'm saying that I think that it's better to fix that problem with you rather than look at the people who made the phone or the apps or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, it's the problem of you needing your phone is solved with you solving it, not with the phone becoming different.
I agree to an extent, like I always do.
I would say it's like a two-pronged assault. Like,
Right.
you definitely want
feel
to,
that.
at the self level, realize like, okay, I'm using this in an addictive manner. I need to regulate myself.
Yeah.
But also, like, if you just went to go get would you call like a phone almost like a basic necessity at this point? Not a basic necessity, but something that like the majority of Americans would have.
That's a really good question.
Well, I
Honestly.
mean,
I would
definitely the majority.
I
of
would
America.
say that's in the time we live in.
And without getting too stuck in the weeds on that, I'm saying that like in a case like where if you did get your phone, it's got these apps already preloaded onto it. So like the idea is like you're getting something with an addictive substance already slathered all over it.
Yeah.
So
like
it's
if your Coca-Cola still came with cocaine in it, or
but it comes
something.
with sugar in it.
Yeah.
So this makes a parallel sugar and caffeine and all
or
those
anything.
things too. So it's like you're not forced to consume sugar, but it's in everything.
Yeah.
You're not forced to consume or
So,
to give up your data, but everybody collects it.
Would you rather them like, kind of like they do with cigarettes, like just like tell you like, hey, phones.
Definitely
Well, because
a start.
like iPhones do that. iPhones,
Definitely
don't they
a
like
start.
prompt you? I don't know. I don't have an iPhone, but I know that I've seen people's iPhones
You
prompt
can
them to
set it
like,
up.
hey,
You can
like
set
you've
it
been
up.
on this for a while now. Why don't you take a walk
You could set
or
it
something
up.
like that?
Yeah.
But I think like because also really addiction. I'm not sure how you go about doing that because like that's just I feel like that's just leading you down to doing it for so many other things because really anything could become addictive. Like every shopping
Very
store
true.
has to have a little window sticker that says like shopping in the store may be addictive and do so at your own risk and
Yeah.
shop responsibly. # shop responsibly.
But but we have this is not a new premise, like you said.
That's
like,
true.
this
They
is
do
the
it for
things that we
gambling,
do
too,
for-
yeah.
That this is something that they made known in cigarettes and shit
Yeah.
too. It's like, look, this is addictive, and I don't think. But personally, though, like you said, I don't understand. I mean, I understand why, but it's like.
Can't you guys
There's-
be better?
There's a little fuckery going on in the
Yeah.
sense of them trying to make it that way.
Yeah.
Because you didn't have to try to do that. Like, you know,
Right.
I don't think they tried to from the onset, but when they realized, hey, we got a little something here.
we
with
could
the
make
kid,
more
just-
money if we could get them to stay on.
Imagine,
it.
Right.
imagine the people who created social media when they realized it was going to be mass consumed by underage girls and boys, like 8 to 12-year-olds.
Yeah.
Like, think about like how fucked up it had to be like, yeah, let's give them a way to rank everything that they say, whether people like it or not, and give them instant validation and give them those little dopamine hits. These are like 6-year-olds, 8-year-olds, 12-year-olds. We might not think that that's what's happening on social media, but I remember I read an old paper I wrote in like 2011, 2012 in college, and it was pointing at all the suicides related to the social media bullying, like specific social media where these kids had no other way. Like, they didn't have each other's numbers to text each other. There was just like kids in your school, and you would have a Facebook or a MySpace, and you would be able to interact with the kids at your school. And that led to, I cited multiple cases where girls had killed themselves. And I kind of specifically looked at the preteen girl category because that was the one where we saw an exponential rise in suicides whenever social media became prevalent. So it really speaks to this idea that, like, yeah, personal responsibility, they're making an addictive product, but it's kind of like advertising cigarettes to kids. When 6 and 8 and 10 and 12-year-olds are going to be using your product, like with YouTube Kids or with Facebook or Twitter or Snapchat or TikTok. Man, my head's going to explode.
Oh, he's gonna go into it.
No, go ahead.
I'm just saying, like, it gets me upset when I think, like, man, like, and obviously there's some responsibility on the parent too. The parent needs to be aware that if their kid is just mass consuming social media.
But the problem being is right now, like, I agree with Mac in the sense of saying, like, you know, you got to make your own choices out here. Like, nobody's forcing it down your throat. But in a way, it's kind of that like that.
It's
know?
very.
It's
I will
hard
say
to
it's
make-
very difficult to get around it.
It's hard to make that conscious decision when you don't realize that's what it's doing to you. You know, and then even like you said, when it just comes pre-installed or just offered to you in a sense, you don't really know what you're getting into when you get into it, and then it just starts grabbing you on a very biological level. It's almost not even a conscious decision. It's something that persuades you in your subconscious, and that's the problem when they were talking about with fake news and things like that. Is it's not like you're going there to try to continuously reinforce your opinion or anything, you know?
No, yeah,
But-
they've studied human psychology and they've worked out ways to make it very likely that you will continue to do what they want. I mean, it's very invisible puppet strings.
Kind
in a
of
sense.
Pavlov
sense.
shit.
Yeah,
Well,
in a
because they're
sense,
playing on the fact that our prefrontal cortex is what we use to make rational decisions, but that's one, not small, but it's one section of the brain, and the rest of the brain, which was developed way before it, is much more powerful and is in charge of
And you can
everything else.
completely circumnavigate.
And you can just
that,
circumnavigate right
straight
through the
that,
prefrontal
you know what I
cortex
mean?
and
Yeah.
just connect right. I mean, as Robert Cialdini said, click word.
Yeah, that's true. That's from Robert Cialdini's book, Influence.
Influence,
Check
a
it out.
must read.
So ironically, the YouTube Kids app didn't even launch till 2015. So I can't remember exactly when Facebook started, or YouTube, I mean. But
YouTube
that
was
just-
launched in 2006, if I'm not
And that
mistaken.
just shows you right there that kids were watching just regular YouTube
Right.
until 2015
15.
and just looking
Yeah.
at, kid-based content.
yeah.
And it wasn't until 2015 they had like a specific, I'm sure they had like, are you over 18? Yes or no type of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They had that integrated at some point, but
But I think it's new, it's new. So we got to give it some credit, or not credit, but leeway in a sense, and I mean, we can get into this conversation too of like, how do you fix it? Because I'm not the biggest fan of regulations and bringing the government into the whole shebang. But you feel like there's got to be something that changes a little bit in this industry because it's becoming such a powerful tool of influence on the culture, on you as a person, like individually. How your mindset and your bias is being created. Dude, I saw this just super innocent post today from this chick. I'll see if I can bring it up real quick. But she was talking about, hey, I'm not posting about politics anymore, but you should really read this little post. And I was like, oh, it's gone. Okay, yeah, it's gone. But damn. And it was just about like, the post was about Democrats, right? And like how she's obviously like a pro-Trumper and stuff. I'm not gonna put her out on blast, but she's obviously right-wing person, and the whole post was about Democrats, and it was like, look at these cities and these states that are democratically led. New York, San Francisco, LA, and all
Detroit.
These places, right? And they were saying, look how much poverty they have. Look how much police brutality they have. Look at all these things, and I get what they're saying, but I'm like, it could be the other way around, right? Like, it could be the fact that they're all this way is the reason that they're trying to see democratic ideals come about, not necessarily because there were democratic ideals that all these things came about. But you would, what I mean? Unless you're a critical thinker and you're somebody who's really evaluating the information, you're sitting there looking like, yeah, you're right, man. Democrats are fucking everything up over there, and this, and it was just like, this, and she posed it as like, this is the end all be all conversation to why Democrats are fucked. And I'm like,
just look at the evidence.
Yeah.
But the problem is that they're conflating a correlation with causation, which, I mean, there's just so many things going on. There's so many variables going on in those cities at that municipal level for like the largest metropolitan cities in all of America, to say that it's because that they're democratically run that they have all of those high statistics.
Right.
That's
it's just
a
like
trap.
which came first.
It's a trap.
It's a trap.
It's
a trap.
It's meme-based political discourse, which is a trap. Because when you make a meme and that meme has a little bit of truth or weight or humor or some form of reality, it doesn't even have to be the most real reality, and it's funny or it pops, then boom, that's the sauce. And now everybody's going to share that, and that's going to go around, and now that's part of the narrative, even if it's completely made up and false. It's now part of the narrative. It's a classic example of the Hillary Clinton pooped her pants meme, because that shit caught like wildfire when there was a doctored picture of Hillary Clinton like getting into a plane, and it was like, oh, look, she pooped her pants. And it was like photoshopped. It wasn't a real thing. But in those days of Facebook, which 2015, 2016, wasn't that long ago, you know what I'm saying? But still, that's a lot of time. And it fucking spread like crazy. And I remember seeing it and thinking like, is this real? I got to check immediately if this is real. Because if this is real, that's really fucked up that they would publish this. That's, like in my brain, I'm like, God damn, dude, like that's really mean. She's an older lady, like I just felt bad
about this.
Yeah, I felt fucking.
We've all shit our pants. Come on.
Yeah, I literally felt absolutely like, oh my God, did they? So I check it, and of course it's fake. It's like, this is Memetic based political discourse. So they got me, it's I got rickrolled, right? So I see it, and then I see somebody share it, and it's like the thought pops in my head. Hundreds of people are going to see that. Thousands, tens of thousands. How many are going to believe it?
Oh yeah.
How many are going to make their decision based on whether or not they think the person they're voting for might have shit their pants in a white dress? And it got to me.
Talks to the spectrum too. Like my example was just a misconstruing of the facts, right? It's like you said, mixing correlation and causation, which is, you could do that in anything. You could do that with statistics all day and night, right? So that's a fair to the flat blown out, like this is completely false. But each one of those things can perpetuate a narrative across the culture, the landscape, that really sways the thought process of people who are not thinking necessarily critically, is what I would keep saying. If you're just consuming stuff on a very face level basis. Like, oh yeah, that's like
I agree with that.
We have to
share.
You need to source your memes, is basically what you're saying. Like, look into the meme.
Well,
like when you see a meme,
dude, 100%. There's so many things, especially when it was really popping a couple months ago, and like everybody's throwing this out. They got bricks out here, and there's fake protesters here, and this is going on.
Antifa.
I've gotten to the point
U-Haul
where
trucks
I
pulling up.
realize that you have to fact check everything.
Yeah.
Like
Dude,
you have to fact check everything.
those post office, like those pictures of those like postal trucks.
Yeah,
and stuff
taking
like
away
that.
that post office thing.
Yeah,
So.
I seen a lot of them that were like people had pulled them up from like old Reddit posts, and they were like, "This is like a photo from like 2012."
when they were installing them.
Yeah, like
All you got to do is
'cause
reverse
there's no
image
context.
search.
Yeah,
you just reverse
there's
image
no
search.
context and stuff. But let me ask you this, because I talked to Pappy about this, and sort of Mom, she was on her phone, but I talked to Pappy on the vacation about this, and I was like, "Man, what do you think about this whole deep fake shit?" Did you guys happen to see the corrected deep fake version of The Irishman, where they redid Robert De Niro and Joe Pesci's age transformation thing to make them look younger? You got to see this.
I've seen The Irishman. I made it pretty far into
The
it.
Irishman is an amazing movie. You have to watch it. Must watch. The
I have some
CGI
views
to
on that
make
movie.
them look younger was not that good, in my opinion. Like you could still tell that De Niro was like
We're
50 or whatever. Like he didn't look as old as he really does, but he
It ruined the movie experience for me.
well, because he's supposed to be like 20. But then you watch the deep fake version of it, and it's like he looks just like from Casino or some shit, like like from Taxi or something.
There's a scene in The Irishman, without any spoilers, where Bobby D is like beating up a shopkeep type of thing.
Yeah.
And his movement and everything was so fake and bad, and the set looked so. It looked like it looked like
they
a
did
set.
the whole thing in CGI. That whole scene CGI.
Yeah, it just absolutely took me out of it. And when he's
it looks super fake.
when he's like, he gets out of his like truck, and like Joe Pesci helps him with the engine, and it's just like this. It's just, it was so bad. And like I'm sure like maybe like critics have given it high scores, but I couldn't get past the first hour and 20 minutes.
You
and
have
it's
to.
a long
I mean,
fucking
the
movie.
acting is so good though. You gotta like.
I want to
like,
see what this deep fake shit is.
entering an era in which our enemies can make it look
never
like
heard of
anyone is saying
never heard of
anything
this?
at
I
any
never
point
heard
in
of
time.
Jordan Peele created this fake video of President Obama to demonstrate how easy it is to put words in someone else's mouth.
Moving forward, we need to be more vigilant with what we trust from the internet.
Not everyone bought it, but the technology behind such frauds is rapidly improving, even as worries increase about their potential for harm. This is your Bloomberg Quick Take on deepfakes.
And this is probably
Deepfakes, or realistic-looking fake videos and audio, gained popularity as a means of adding famous actresses into porn scenes. Despite bans on major websites, they remain easy to make and find. They're named for the deep learning artificial intelligence algorithms that make them possible. Input real audio or video of a specific person, the more the better, and the software tries to recognize patterns in speech and movement. Introduce a new element like someone else's face or voice, and a deepfake is born.
It's actually extremely easy to make one of these things. There were just some breakthroughs from academic researchers who work with this particular kind of machine learning in the past few weeks, which would drastically reduce the amount of video you need actually to create one of these.
Programs like Fake App, the most popular and widely available.
I understand we're not hearing these in our headphones.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. I can make that happen for you.
I can make that happen. I can fix that.
How about
For making deep fakes,
Yep,
need
got it
dozens of
now.
hours of human assistance to create a video that looks like this, rather than this. In August, researchers at Carnegie Mellon revealed software that accurately rendered not just facial features, but changing weather patterns and flowers in bloom. This advance is not yet available to the public. But with increasing capability comes increasing concern.
This is kind of fake news on steroids, potentially. We do not know of a case yet where someone has tried to use this to perpetrate a kind of fraud or
Looks
an
like he's using
information
it right now.
warfare campaign.
pause
or
real quick? There's actually I remember seeing this on Twitter when Joe Biden was making the videos from his basement, like during what, 2 months ago, maybe something like that, right after he won the nomination. There's a thing where you can like take a video and run it through a processor to find out if it's a deep fake or not. And it makes a very accurate, like it's known to be very accurate. And it called a lot of the things going on in Joe Biden's basement videos fake. And I didn't see anything else after that about it. But, it's just one of those things that makes you think, like, we're already seeing a point where we have access on our internet to, like, deepfake busting software. So, that shit is legit. Like, they're deepfaking the hell out of us.
We're going to need it. I mean, they
It's
need to
gonna
build that
get
shit into the
bad.
algorithm.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's gonna get bad.
I don't know if we even need the rest of this video. I mean,
Just go to the.
I knew a lot.
You've seen The Irishman though, right?
I have seen Irishman.
You gotta see the difference. Like the Irishman one is crazy.
Dude, this is the scariest thing I've heard. Which one right here? The DA.
No, the top one.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, this is all places to me. You helped me with my truck a couple of months ago.
He doesn't look that much younger.
In that scene, he doesn't. Now look at it.
Yeah, you can see. It's just
Yeah,
like
I see it a
it's
little
like a
bit.
nice little soft filter on him, really. Though it's just
Yeah.
like taking out a lot of his wrinkles.
Yeah. Well, yeah, de-aging.
Like right there, he
Yeah.
looks a little bit younger than he does in the
for
movie.
real.
Bombing out a laundry place.
It's true.
I mean,
Yeah,
that's
it's pretty good.
it's pretty good.
I was
The
just
lighting's not right,
doing a
which is
job
throwing
to
it
make some
off,
extra
but
money.
it's pretty good.
Putting this place out of
I mean, he
action.
looks considerably younger.
Yeah,
Putting this
100%. Dude, so this is scary. All right?
Absolutely.
This is, and especially in the context of what we were just talking about, how I mean, Photoshop was already nasty enough. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It could make you think somebody shit their pants. Now you could really just like switch up somebody's entire message or put out some ridiculous propaganda. And look, are a lot of people going to catch it? Sure. A lot of people who know about, like, I didn't even know this existed. I didn't even know this technology existed. So I wasn't even out here looking for this. You know what I mean? So I could have easily got played by this. But there's going to be a whole group of motherfuckers who just gonna take it at face value and be like, yep, that's I heard Biden say one time, I heard Trump say this, I heard whatever, they're calling for mass nuclear extinction or some shit, whatever. I watched it come right out of his own mouth, and then you're running away with that, and that is it's dangerous, man.
Yeah, it's almost
dangerous.
like the boy who cried wolf too, because like, what if something happens and our people get on like live television and they're like, it's happening right now. We're doing it. Whatever it is, like aliens invade, we launch nuclear missiles, whatever the fuck it is, World War III, whatever it is. And it's like, we're going to be like, is that a deep fake?
Yeah.
Bet you that's a deep fake.
Yeah, when it's
Like,
while,
look at that.
while California's literally getting like invaded, and then we're
You
just
see those
like,
pixels around his cheekbone?
yeah, it's like
didn't look right.
it's incredible. I was even learning about this in school, about how they now do CGI in real time. So, before you used to have to do a green screen thing and then, put it in. So the actors would act it all out in green screen room and then put it in. Now they can composite all that stuff in real time. So, like, do real time engines and stuff. So, like, The Mandalorian was a good case of this. A lot of the sets and everything, like, if you look, they have these huge, like, 3D screens, and they're just playing you, so that the director could be like, hey, move this boulder over here or something, like that doesn't look right or whatever, and they could just reprogram the shit, move it over, and like change the whole set.
That's crazy.
And so it's like helping directors be able to direct visual effects. But yeah, insane that you can now do that in real time. Like, it was already crazy enough that we could do it in post, you know what I mean? But to now be able to, which is essentially this deepfake stuff, this augmented reality, it's pulling us more and more into the digital
Our
avatar.
reality is starting to melt into our digital
into
avatar.
our digital reality, which is, I mean,
The line
to
between
be
them
expected.
is becoming extremely blurry.
I just watched Elon Musk again recently on Joe Rogan. and
Yeah, he talks about the firewall or something. He says there's a bandwidth issue, is what he says is the difference between our reality and our digital avatar is just a bandwidth issue.
It's because we have to use our fingers to get from here to there to into the machine, but soon you just plug that in. But even just him warning us about artificial intelligence, he was like, "So what do you think about artificial?" And Elon just like, long pause, bro, like long, just like, well, essentially we're fucked.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
It's
he doesn't
inevitable.
say that. He doesn't say
It's
that. But
inevitable,
he
though.
was like, I've been trying to warn him. I've been trying to warn people to just not, and they keep going. And I was just like, yikes, this is scary. It's like the time I heard Stephen Hawking's telling them to stop fucking with the splitting of atoms and shit. He's like, you're going to open up a black hole right here on our Earth, and when you do that, it's a wrap.
It'll all be over.
Yeah, it's a wrap. And so, I don't like to be somebody who is dystopian, like when we were talking about the protopian episode one time. Yeah. I understand that naturally as humans, we're always trying to predict the apocalypse, right? We're always trying to...
survival instinct.
Exactly, right? And the fear of, like, it could all be over. So I try and fight against that, but it does seem sometimes that... we do things without understanding the unintended consequences. We're just like, wouldn't it be cool if you could slap your face, become another person,
Yeah, we're seeing it now. Like, I saw this whole TikTok thing where this guy put his face on Keanu Reeves in the John Wick scenes and stuff. And, like, like on TikTok, obviously it's not that good as like this. Yeah. But, this is becoming available to, like, just the average person. Yeah. Just anybody that can work an app.
It's already an app.
There was a Facebook fad about a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, right around mid-September, or maybe even sooner, where it was just like, put your face on a celebrity's face. Yep. And it was like some little Facebook thing.
Somebody sent me those things. Yeah, they put me into a bunch of different people and stuff. It was like
I've seen them on Instagram story filters. They do them live. Yeah. So, like, this is becoming extremely
only gets better.
Prevalent. Yeah, and it's only going to get better at doing it.
It only gets better.
So it's like, where did we go from here? Like, what are the implications of such technology, and what exactly do we want to do with it?
I actually think that this part of the conversation makes your advice the most pristine advice here, right? In the sense of, like, it's only becoming more and more your own responsibility to, like, look into the stuff you're consuming. Look into the stuff that you're reading. Like, you gotta go 3 layers deep on this stuff. I mean, if you're not, then you just can't internalize it and say, oh, this is what I believe now, or this is what I think, unless you're willing to go 2 or 3 steps down from that and make sure. Because a lot of these things, like you said, are easily fact checkable, right? Yeah. So a lot of these things it's scary, but there's always some type of, like, you can analyze it to find out if it's a deep fake. You can, sometimes it's easy as, like, reading the comments on some of these posts. Some of these posts I'll go and read the comments, and people are like, bunk, like this, you can easily, you can get the other side of it just as easy as that. But you can't just sit, like,
do your research.
You have to. In the society we live in today, I think that it's too prevalent. You don't know who to trust, and so you really got to look back. There's one thing in the Social Dilemma docu that I felt was, and I started a little bit with this, is that they said fake news is a big deal, and we're seeing deepfake and all this stuff. But, dude, I was watching the regular news the other day, and I'm like, how is this any better? Like, how is regular news better than the fake news that's being proliferated? I was watching the regular news, and like I said, same thing. I didn't feel like anything that they were reporting on, like it almost felt to me. Now, it's crazy because maybe social media networks and stuff have trained me to think this way, to be naturally skeptical of everything now. But I'm watching and I'm like, did y'all write that? They're like, oh, it says here that you wrote in a thing one time this and that. And matter of fact, I'm gonna bring it up because I just felt like this is, I sent it to you guys in the group chat, and I was like, yo, this is what they're at. This is where we're at with it these days. Like, this is how they're going about reporting the news.
Joining us now is someone who was in the audience at Tuesday's debate, sitting just 15 feet from the president. Sadly, Kristen Urquiza's dad passed away from COVID this summer. The San Francisco resident was at the debate at the invitation of the Biden campaign.
Right there, off top. How is that relevant to this conversation? The fact that the person you're about to talk to's dad died from COVID? You know what I mean? Like, that little bit of information is only there to emotionally sway you, and in the setting up of this. It's like the
Thank you so much for your time, and of course our condolences for the loss of your father. The Cleveland Clinic, which hosted the debate, said today, quote, "We believe there is low risk of exposure to our guests," and they were reaching out to everyone who attended. Have you spoken with them today, and were you able to get tested already?
I haven't spoken to anyone at the Cleveland Clinic, and I have a scheduled test for tomorrow, but I did speak to folks at the Biden campaign, including Dr. Biden, who were very gracious and informative to help me figure out just, how to make sure that I was taken care of.
And you were sitting very close to the front Tuesday. Kind of just give us a sense of what you saw. Walk us through it and the difference between the Biden side and the Trump side.
It's it gets pretty obvious.
Absolutely. Well, first off, before I could even enter the debate hall, I had to get into town a day early so that I could get a COVID rapid test, quarantine, and that was what we were told everyone was required to do. When I entered into the debate hall, I felt super comfortable. They took temperatures. There was lots of social distancing. But once we settled into our seats, there was a Biden side and a Trump side. And as I gazed over to the Trump side, I saw maybe 1-2 people wearing masks. And then as I looked behind me, a sea of people who were masked. And I started to think to myself, wait, I think there's an indoor ordinance here. Why isn't this being enforced? And then, obviously, over the course of the debate, Mr. Trump, President Trump himself was very, vocal, and I just can't imagine, how much, potential viral load was.
Did she say very vocal?
Just him
She's saying he was so vociferous that the viral load he was spewing into the air came all the way into my room.
I can only imagine how many people got affected by the viral load spewing out of his mouth. Like, what?
And they're like, didn't your dad die months ago?
Right. They continue to hammer that. What?
And as we stated in the very beginning, your dad passed away in Arizona over the summer. And you wrote in his obituary.
How is that relevant to the story you're reporting on here? You're not reporting on this lady's family. You're not reporting on this chick. She's only supposed to be a representation of like an insight into this, like, what it was like being around Trump and his family now that they've tested for COVID. And then they go, well, hold on, I got to get to the...
I want to quote that his death was due to the carelessness of the politicians. And you wrote in his obituary, and I want to quote that his death was due to the carelessness of the politicians who continue to jeopardize the health of brown bodies through a clear lack of leadership, refusal to acknowledge the severity of this crisis, and inability and unwillingness to give clear and decisive direction on how to minimize risk. What do you feel needs to change now?
We need a coordinated, data-driven response to this pandemic.
Data-driven?
And
it was a data-driven response?
Politicians like Donald Trump and his family are
Who
continuing
is
to
this person? First of all, I want to
above public health. The Trump family arrived so late to the debate. I just learned this 20 minutes ago that they weren't even tested. And then looking at the timeline, it seems like they knew people in their inner circle were positive as they continued to campaign.
How do you know that?
I did see a thing recently where they, the doctor that came out yesterday and briefed us on Donald Trump getting COVID.
Yeah.
He said something about the 72 hours and the 48 hours. Like, he made some reference to time, which they then extrapolated to mean like, okay, well, if he's had it for that long, then that means he had it at this time, but he was still doing these things. Like, they found, like, supposedly they knew sometime Wednesday, but he had a campaign event he went to Thursday where he still campaigned and everything. So the implication here, without any actual evidence other than, I don't even know if they're citing that. They're not citing anything.
She's just saying 20 minutes ago, I learned that they showed up late and didn't get tested. And it's like,
she's
and
inferring.
that they continue to campaign while they knew that people in their campaign were
Inner
positive.
circle were,
And I'm like,
how do you know that?
But we're just now finding out that all these people are
we don't-
positive.
yeah, we
so
don't-
how did
that
you?
you don't know.
The
Like,
first
I'm not
person to
saying
come
that's
out
not true.
positive wasn't it Trump? I don't remember anybody else coming out positive before Trump.
Man, it's all the people at that.
I know
Amy
that there's a lot of
Comey-
them now.
Yeah, I don't know who the first one was, but the Amy Comey Barrett thing is what they're pointing to, is like where all that shit got spread.
Oh, that's where it started.
Yeah.
Well, I was blown away when he was in like he was talking to the whole president and like entourage
Bolsonaro.
of Brazil,
Yeah,
Brazil, and like come to find out like a day later he had COVID.
Yeah.
Like 2 people in that
And they
room
were
had
just
COVID,
sitting
and I
there
was
big
like,
chilling, talking. Yeah.
huh?
No mask.
I wonder if Trump's gonna get COVID.
Also-
and then nothing happened, and I was like, wow.
Yeah.
Also, it looks like politically that was a win. Politically, that was a win for Bolsonaro because, and that's why people point to it like, oh, it's fake or whatever. Bolsonaro didn't really have it because like the evidence to suggest that is just like kind of the Occam's razor theory of like, He's anti-COVID. He's a strong man. He gets COVID, immediately beats it, comes back and is like, it ain't that big of a deal. They have 5 million cases in Brazil. So it's like, he's...
That's one case. Like, it could be...
Yeah, so it's just, it was a way that, like, some people were like, well, did Bolsonaro fake it? And I said...
Well, the same thing they're trying to say with Trump now, too. But this is my point. There's a difference between things that you know, and things you think you know.
Yeah, exactly. She has no fucking clue when these people knew they were positive.
None of that.
None of that.
But you come on here and you spew it as if you're some... And I don't know who this chick is because, like, obviously this is a clip from a larger piece. And so I'm pretty sure they probably introduce her. And maybe she's in the room, so maybe she's somebody of importance. But... they're quoting her obituary and all this stuff. And, like, it says here you wrote. And I'm immediately like, did she write that? Like,
we should look up this man's obituary.
Yeah, like I'm sitting here thinking like, yeah, we should look
also,
up this man's obituary.
It is
I don't even know
it is a spicy obituary.
Kristen Urquiza.
Yeah.
I'm sure I fucked that up.
Like you're supposed to be talking about the death of your father and you're chastising the fucking like governmental system.
To play devil's advocate there, someone would say, well, if her father died because of what she believes, the lack of whatever on the Trump administration,
apparently
then that's her like punching back.
I love that comes up in the suggested, like when I searched her name, this was the second thing suggested was the obituary.
Oh, you want to read that obituary?
Yeah.
Hey, New York Times, you want to read that obituary?
And who is she?
Wait, when was this article written?
He died over the summer, so this article was written
July 13th.
Yeah.
And that clip you saw was from the news a few days ago.
Yeah.
So, okay, ABC must have seen this.
October, and then
Yeah, so they must have seen something about this.
Is due to the carelessness of the politicians who continue to... Okay, so she did write that. Which, I mean, but you see how skeptical I am? I'm like, she didn't write this.
Yeah, we got to find out if you fed her that line.
I'm sitting here thinking like, all right, it's like a straw man or something. Like, we're going to set you up so that you can be the embodiment of the conversation we want to have.
And I'm not trying to, be like Mr. Snoopy suspicious, but it's like, okay, so she has to be a person of some importance.
Yeah.
Because she had an article written about her in the summer.
Yeah.
And she wrote this very spicy hot take obituary.
Yeah.
And then she's also close enough to the president at the debate to be worried about the viral load he's spewing out of his mouth hole. Yeah. So it's like, and then you get on ABC News and it's like, well, how many other,
I mean, they did say that she was there because the Biden campaign invited her. So she's probably friends with somebody at the Biden campaign and they were like, yo, I can get you into the debate.
Supposedly she tests negative too. For COVID-19.
Oh, good for her.
After sitting right next to him.
Also, let me say one thing.
Yeah, it says a guest of former President Joe Biden.
According to the CDC, you don't start seeing symptoms. There's an incubation period. There's like 7 to 14 days. That's the whole reason why we're quarantining, to see if you end up with symptoms.
Yeah.
So if Trump, I've seen a lot of stuff saying that like, oh, Trump and Melania are just quarantining with mild coughs and headaches and stuff like that. I'm like, well, shit, they could have had it for 2 goddamn weeks by now.
Oh, they could have had it.
Like, according to the information that we're getting from the CDC, they might not have just gotten it. Like, we just know that they tested it. But that's another point to bring up, the fact that they're just making a lot of conjecture in that clip about when these people got it, when they knew that they had it, why they were still doing things when they had it, who had it first. And I'm like, do we have any of that information?
I don't. Yeah.
I'm like, that's the same thing. Like when it's the same thing that when the Kristen Ortega, or not Kristen Ortega, that's a fucking chick from that Netflix show. Never mind. Yeah. But it's the same thing that when the Jacob Blake thing happened, they were saying like it was literally like within hours, and I'm like, there's no way you have any of this information.
Yeah.
I'm like, there's like the police don't even have this information, and they haven't said anything. They haven't made a statement. So I'm like, how are you making all of these conclusions yet?
And so this is my thing, right? It's like that it's not about like reporting and news is not about presenting facts to the populace, right? Yeah. It's about conjecture, inference, suasion, opinion. It's all so it's just as bad as the social media is. Like there's no real difference. If you could go and look at an article or something that's proposed on Fox News and CNN, the debate's a perfect example of this. The headlines are different, right? Depending on whatever way you want to spin the shit. And that's what it is. It's all spin, right? It's like people are going in about the whole press conference of the doctors talking about Trump, right? And so they say whatever they say for whatever reason they're going to say it, right? But then here comes everybody else like, well, how come they didn't say this? And how come they didn't do that? And they must be trying to hide this. And they must be trying to, he's way worse than he is. And he's not as bad.
And that's not news.
Like, that's not. It's it's just straight opinion pieces.
This all started when CNN came out with the 24/7 news thing, right? Wasn't that CNN?
I don't know if we could
first...
point to like a nexus of like when social media and propaganda influenced fake news all came together.
This would be pre social media. When CNN did this was back in like the 80s.
Yeah, and that's what I'm getting to is that this is something that's been ongoing forever. It's just when social media hit, we saw like an uptick in clickbaity fake news type shit. Like that would be
no.
my
I
premise.
think that you saw an uptick in it because you were also on the internet. But I think that the beginning of that kind of stuff actually started when the 24/7 news thing came out, because you could no longer wait to put the story out after you had all the facts. Because if CNN was going to put the story out right when it happened, then you had to come out with something too. And so the only thing that you could possibly come out with is conjecture.
I don't see anything on here that says CNN invented it.
The O.J. Simpson case in 94 and 95 created the 24-hour news cycle and ushered in the era of cable news. This was a contrast by the day-to-day pace of the news cycle of printed daily newspapers. A high premium on faster reporting would see a further increase with the advent of online news. It doesn't necessarily point directly to CNN effect.
Wait, click that.
See also the CNN effect.
This article has multiple issues.
The CNN,
this is Wikipedia,
well
folks.
Cited. Yeah, has multiple.
We're just trying to get some quick info here.
The CNN effect is a phenomenon in political science and media studies that compels policymakers to intervene in humanitarian situations by using the mainstream media. Despite these origins, the term, as used, generally refers to a broad range of real-time modern media and is not exclusive to CNN, the United States, or 24-hour news stations. So it seems to be getting correlated to it, but it's not necessarily their fault.
Yeah.
But I thought that CNN was the first person to like come out with one. I don't know.
We can look that up too.
Yeah, like.
But anyways, your point being is you think, and I would say that that's a good hypothesis, that that's what because you're right, now there is no time to build a story or to investigate or to collect the facts. Not that they were necessarily doing it before very well, but this would perpetuate
it's a horrible
the idea
incentive.
that you need that you. Fuck that. Like,
I think about it like MIB, man. You remember Men in Black when they went and got the papers and it was all like the fake ass like yeah, like that seems to be if I want to go back to like where this kind of thing looked like it started. It was like this.
Fake information's been around forever.
Oh, so on June 1st, 1980, Ted Turner launched CNN, the first 24-hour cable news operation, and sister channel Headline News followed in 1982.
I knew
that's where it
in the 80s.
Ted Turner was the first one to launch a 24-hour cable news.
I should be on Jeopardy, son.
But I think that's true because, like you said before, then we were mostly dominated by print media, like print news and all these things, and journalists had to go and do stories and have them fact checked and then now it just becomes like speculate on it until we get all the facts, and then we say, oh, this just in, actually everything we just said up until now was complete bullshit. This is another spin on whatever it is.
But the problem is that's where the human psychology ties in even deeper, because when they get the information in, they don't want to say that they don't want to say that
they were dummies.
So they twist it. That's where the spin comes. So the conjecture comes first, and then they spin, and then they keep spinning, and then all of a sudden now we're just getting spin from the gate. It's all spin.
It sounds like a political bop it, like bop it, spin it, conject it,
infer it,
guess it,
twist it. Don't prove it.
Fake it.
That's really funny.
Green screen.
That's exactly the world we live in today. And so, I mean, us as the normal Joe, I mean, I like I said, this is nothing new to social media. You could never really I don't want to be that guy. Don't trust the media, but
don't trust the stuff you see on TV. It's all deep fakes.
We are always, especially in our personal conversations, always constantly trying to separate the fact from the bias and conjecture and all that stuff. Like you said, even in the documentary, after a point, I was like, okay, we're out of the facts now. And into when they start offering you conclusions, that was another thing you pointed out. We were watching a video, and he was like, so what you were probably gathering from this video we're watching is that, and it's like, whoa. You don't know what the fuck.
Don't tell me what I'm gathering. I'm gathering plenty of things, and that's my business, sir. Thank you very much. You just tell me what you got to tell me. I'll deal with the conclusions.
Every time they hit me with that, I get so upset. They're like, and obviously, as you can see here, and I'm like, wait. You just gave me your conclusion. I have not concluded that all news media is biased. Like, there's like maybe it is. Yeah. But let me do my own fucking research.
I'll figure it out for my goddamn
I don't need you to tell me, YouTube.
Pitch it to me. So it was strange. The other one was the debate obviously was a big way in this too. Like,
I wish we would have live streamed our reaction. I know nobody like right now we might not have a lot of people watch it, but someday, let me tell you, we're gonna, because it was comedy gold.
It was great.
Like, I busted him I was watching it. I didn't know he was watching. We just got back from
because I don't watch it like that. I don't ever watch it like that.
Yeah, like, so this guy, he's not
in my room and he's like, oh, you watching the debate?
I ran back into my closet, paused my shit, got my weed, came back in here, and we watched the majority of it. We couldn't stomach it after the first hour.
We watched a lot of it.
Like a lot of it?
Yeah, we watched the stream replay because we were out doing
something. Because, I was just reading headlines at first, but then that was the thing. That was the thing that was pissing me off. I'm reading all these headlines, and I'm like, I go to CNN, and they're like, well, okay, I have a couple of points to make here. But first, they're like, Trump this, Trump that, Trump did this. I'm like, oh, okay, fine. Go over here to anybody else, ABC or some shit or whatever, and it's the same thing. It's just like, I just see it's just all like, this is what we think.
This is
Biden
what happened.
Obviously
We're
won.
telling you what happened.
Biden obviously won it because of this, and this. And I'm like, God damn it, I'm going to have to watch this shit for myself to come up with my own conclusions. Like, I can't just get the information. Like, this is what was said. This is what happened. I swear to God, my next venture, when I get to Ted Turner level, is to create a factual news source where it's like, we don't got no, like, hey, today, this is what happened. Peace.
Yeah, you can just come on there and be like, there was a shooting in Compton today. I have no idea what's going on.
This is what we know.
But when I have more, I'll tell you.
That's it. Close in the case. But
it's really funny comedy.
I'm coming with that. I'm coming with that. That's a real thing. Like, when somebody else was talking, Ollie was talking about the organic Amazon. Like, these are good ideas.
Organic news.
Yeah. Organic, real news. Like, fact news. Anyway,
hashtag organic.
Grass-fed news.
So I was like, I'm going to have to watch the thing myself. And so we watched it. But, I was mostly trying to get to the part that everybody wanted to see. The whole stand back and stand by.
Yeah, which we knew because, like, Rod had said, like, oh, I saw this article or whatever that said that he didn't denounce white supremacy. So we're watching the first hour and whatever, however long we watched. And we're just fucking losing our minds.
Yeah, after 45 minutes, I was like sick to my stomach.
Boy, we were like two rats stuck in a shoebox, dude. We were going ape shit. Anyways, we're looking for this white supremacy thing. We're like listening. We're skipping ahead. We're watching. And then
I gotta see this. This nigga doesn't fucking.
Yeah, we had because I didn't know what he said. I just knew that there was some headlines. Yeah. So we're watching and like, I'm sure everybody's seen it, but the part that just. I remember catching it live, not live, but in the playback, where he's like, they're like, well, will you denounce it now, sir? And Joe Biden's like, yeah, do it. And Donald Trump freezes, and he looks down at Chris Wallace, and he goes, well, give me a name. But I mean, there's a weighty pause, but he's like, well, give me a name then. Give me a name. Who do you want me to denounce? Just give me a name. And Joe Biden over there, like a dummy, says, Proud Boys.
The Proud Boys.
Why? First of all, why would you say Proud Boys?
Why? We're white supremacy. Like, that's the name.
White supremacy.
Yeah, the name is white supremacy.
First of all, there's not even enough evidence to say. Like, I'm sure that they have white supremacists in them, but I've seen black and brown Proud Boys too. They're like, fucking, I love America. They seem all this shit. So I'm like,
they seem to be mostly anti-social justice warrior. Let's go beat up Portland protester types, which is if you want to tuck your shirt in, that's fine. Right. I'm not against that.
Do you, buddy?
I am not against that.
I'm all for it.
If you grab a tiki torch and march around saying Jews will not replace us, I might have a problem.
Yeah. All of a sudden, you've become white supremacist.
Yeah. So when Joe Biden goes Proud Boys, then that once again we screamed about this during the stream back. We said Joe Biden was playing by Trump's playbook, and Trump was mopping the floor with him because he just wasn't. Joe Biden was not sticking to the game plan. Yeah. The game plan is not to get sucked into Trump.
Shut up.
Yeah, that's not the game plan.
That's not the
so
game
when
plan,
Trump
bro.
says, "Who do you want me to name? Give me a name," which is a classic Trump move.
Because that's what we said. We like, you have him on the ropes, and then they gave him like an out.
They gave him an
like,
out. And Biden says Proud Boys, and then Trump goes, Proud Boys? And you can see how happy he is that he just named some group that Trump doesn't think is a white supremacist group.
Doesn't give a fuck.
So he's like, stand black?
Stand back and stand by.
He throws a little L in there. Like if you watch he says he didn't mean to say stand back, but he says stand black and stand by.
But I think that people like, it's so funny to see how people like when Trump says something that they want to think, when Trump says something that they want to spin as ridiculous, they were like, look at this doofus.
Yeah.
He's such an idiot. Look at all the dumb things he says.
I agree.
And then when he comes on and says some dumb shit, stand black and stand by.
Yeah.
And like, you know, because
Look
he's
how
like,
serious he is.
He meant that. He meant
Joe
that.
Biden's over here talking while Chris
Law and a little
Wallace
bit
is
of order.
talking. And he's like, who do you want me to like? He didn't look like he was being all like facetious or anything. Like he just looked like he was confused. He was like, I don't know what you're talking about.
I think it was a tongue tie.
And he
I don't
was
think
just-
he meant to say stand back and stand by. But you remember we were talking about the whole difference between your prefrontal cortex and your subconscious?
Yep.
I
felt like it was a little subconsciously leaked out. I don't know this. I'm inferring, but I'm just saying that's what it felt like to me when I was just like, oof, you could have picked any words.
Yeah.
You
And all
could have
the-
picked any.
yeah,
you
I thought
could have
the same
just
thing.
been
I was like,
I
oh.
denounce. Stand down. You could have got it
Yes.
right. We could have said anything, but you was like stand back and stand by.
The subsequent interviews, he says stand down like 10 times because he's trying to put it back into your head.
What he should have done was, in my opinion, what he should
I
have
would love
done
to see
was
the
when he
stand
comes
black.
out and says does the whole stand down thing. He should have said like, yeah, I was
I
flustered
misspoke,
last night. I misspoke.
He's
I
a
should have said
narcissist.
stand down.
He'll never admit.
But that's
that
what
he
I'm
was
saying.
like,
I'm like,
fuck
would you
that.
motherfuckers just come out here and say that you got something wrong for just 2 seconds so that you don't look like a doofus?
You have
Your statement.
repeatedly,
Wait,
you have
just 1
repeat. No,
second.
you've been talking
You
back
made
and
a
forth.
statement.
Oh, we're gonna get
asking
to
you-
that.
You know,
end it.
sir.
I would love to end it. and
You
we
know, if
would
you want to
very
switch seats,
We could very quickly.
we could do that. But
I'd
I'm
send
no,
in the National Guard. It would be over. There'd be no problem.
Okay.
But they don't want to accept the National Guard.
You have repeatedly criticized the vice president for not specifically calling out Antifa and other left-wing
That's right.
extremist groups.
That's right.
But are you willing tonight to condemn
lost
white
the left.
supremacists and militia groups and to say that they need to stand down and not add to the violence in a number of these cities, as we saw in Kenosha and as we've seen in Portland?
Sure,
are you
I'm willing
prepared
to do
specifically
that, but
do it? Well, go ahead, sir.
I would say almost everything I see is from the left wing, not from the right
So
wing.
what are you,
Oh,
what are
wait.
you, what are you saying?
I'm willing to do anything. I want to see
Well,
peace.
then do it, sir.
Say
it. Do it. Say it.
Do you want to call him? What do you want to call him? Give me a name.
Pa-
Give me a
pa-
name.
See if you can pause it on his facial expression when he
You could-
pauses. He looks like he
He's
looks like a
he's on the
deer in
ropes.
headlights. He's
He's
like,
on the ropes here.
This
yeah,
is how
he's
you
like, do
defeat
it,
him.
and then immediately he was like,
Give me a name. Give me a
White-
name.
Say it.
Do you
Say
wanna
it.
call him?
Do it then.
Do it. Say it.
This is how you defeat him. You make him do it. You make him say it. And instead, Joe Biden says, Proud Boys.
Wait,
wanna
let's see.
call
Let's
him?
see.
What do you want to call him? Give me a name. Give me a
White
name. Go ahead.
supremacists and
Who would
right
you like me to condemn?
White supremacists and right
Proud
militia.
Boys, stand back and stand by. But I'll tell you what. Somebody's got to do something about.
But the left, though?
Antifa and the left.
What the fuck is this?
Okay, so he doesn't say
Reuters?
stand black. He says back with a weird A.
Yeah, because he's tongue tied though. You know what I mean? Like you said, he's obviously flustered.
Yeah.
He's
He doesn't know
obviously
what he's
stuck.
talking about.
And we already know. Okay, I want to lay out some premises because I like to break outside of this idea of like who won, who was more right. Like
That's not what we're here for.
I don't give a fuck about.
That's
any
an
of that.
opinion.
No. He was obviously flustered, right? Because we talked about this big time. You can actually look up. There's hundreds of times where Trump's like not hundreds, but there's plenty of times where
Dozens.
Trump is straight denounced white supremacy. But this is a bad look because you want those votes. You
Because
want
he
those
knows that they vote for him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
those
He
people
wants those votes.
He wants those votes. Whether it's right, wrong, left, or whatever you fucking agree with. That's why he doesn't want to say this because they do the same thing to Joe Biden in this. Nobody talks about that part where he's like, say law and order. Say it.
Say
Law and Order. You can't even say those
You just
words.
lost the left.
Right?
Yeah.
And
Because in Trump's brain, if he says, I denounce white supremacy in very clear terms, Joe Biden's going to look across that fucking stage and go, you just lost the right.
Yeah.
Although I wish
Where
he
you
would.
call
He never
them
would.
super predators, African Americans are super predators, and they've never forgotten it. They've never forgotten it, Joe.
No, sir, it's his 2 minutes.
So you did that.
There's videos of him saying that.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Are you telling me our politicians are
It's
liars?
in his bill. It's literally written in it.
But did he say black people are super predators?
Well, no, I mean he didn't say black people are super predators.
Rod, stop.
I mean,
You.
that's a good point. Maybe that's what he meant. He's like, I didn't call black people. I just said that these predators specifically. I do want to say though, what really surprised me, I found out Dave Room was talking about how Chris Wallace asked him this exact same question. He asked Trump the exact same question in 2016
About the
white supremacy.
Denouncing
thing.
white supremacy?
Yeah,
So
he literally
it's come
asked him,
up-
"Will you denounce white supremacy?"
It's come up multiple times.
And it's so like, I just thought that was interesting. I was like, wow, the same guy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's 4 years ago, so I guess you could forget. But I mean, I guess
It's-
also the
it's
moderator
common-
doesn't write the
'Cause it's
questions,
hot
does
topic, though.
Yeah. They've done it before, like with the whole David Duke thing, where they asked him to denounce David Duke and the KKK. He kind of skirted the question. The next day, he came out and said, "I fully denounced David Duke and the KKK."
I went back and I googled David Duke. I do not like him.
Which
I now know who he is.
It's just this is part of his, like I was saying, it's part of his playbook. It's part of the Trump playbook. You just say, "Give me a name." Because then it puts them on the spot. And if they name the wrong group, like the Proud Boys, now you look like a fucking dummy.
Yeah.
Because now you're trying to tell me that the Proud Boys are white supremacists. And if that doesn't jive with the majority of people's realities, now you look like a dummy.
During the Obama-Biden administration, there was tremendous division. There was hatred.
Justice where people get treated fair.
Order? Go ahead, say it. About law and
Ooh,
order.
yeah, a little bit of
You
order.
still haven't mentioned.
Violent
Are you in
crime.
favor of law and order?
I'm in favor of law. You follow
Are
it
you in
and a
favor
little
of
bit of
law and order? Go ahead, say it.
That's my favorite line.
They don't, none of those headlines.
And a little bit of order.
None of those headlines hit you with that part of that quote. Because that's just ridiculously funny.
Look, because it says right there, Biden, I support, quote, law and order, ... where people get treated fairly. But he didn't really say that. He said, I support law and a little bit of order.
Well, he says I support law and order and a little bit of order. Like, he does, like, if you scoot it back,
Which
he says
again,
the full sentence.
I don't want to say, I mean, these are both men close to being 80. I'm sure this is, I mean, I'm sure if you go back, if Biden could go back, he wouldn't have said that.
Yeah, he would.
I don't think
Exactly.
that. You think he would have?
I think he would have.
And
In
a
the
little
same
bit of
way,
order?
in the same way, Trump this is part of your game. You can't.
You can't come out here and say
alienate your little
base.
All of them are
right?
sitting there,
Yeah,
like, in the back of the
waiting,
thing.
like you
If
better
he
not
says
fucking, you better not sell us down the river, Biden. You know, what I
say
mean?
you
You
denounce
say,
Antifa, I swear
if
to
you
God.
don't
Yeah.
say defund the police.
Yeah, right. You know, then you're not for us for real.
If you don't tattoo
Which is
ACAB
funny
on your
because,
forehead, I
like,
swear to God.
Let's talk about like what do they think's gonna happen here? Like you really think like, oh, if you don't say or if you say don't defund the police or something, everybody's gonna run and vote for Trump? Like, what are you talking?
They might really believe that kind of bullshit because this is the same guy, Joe Biden, that walked up during the Spanish speaking thing and played Despacito from his phone.
Yeah.
They're
That's
at a level
cringe.
of cringe.
But if you're that far radical left, then there's nothing really.
you already hate Joe Biden.
You already hate Trump is my point. Like if you're far left Antifa and then Joe Biden comes out and says I'm for law and order, it's not like you're gonna like run and vote for
He
Trump.
lost
now.
us.
Yeah, he's like,
None of those
what-
people are going to vote for
law and
Biden
order.
anyway.
Violent
You still
crime.
haven't mentioned.
Violent
Are you in
crime.
favor of law and order?
I'm in favor of law. You follow
Are you
it
in
and a little
favor
bit
of
of
law
order.
and order? Go ahead.
I'm in
say law
favor
and
of
order.
law, you
and
following
order.
it,
Law
and a little bit of order.
Law and order with
Not
justice
me
where
following
people
it.
get treated fairly. And the fact of the matter is violent crime went
lost the
down
left.
17%, 15% in our administration.
All right.
It's gone up on his watch.
Went down
He-
much more
he
in
had-
ours.
All right, we're
He
now.
is
You're,
president of
Mr.
the
President,
United
you're going
States
to.
of America.
We
Mr.
were
President,
breaking every
you're-
record in the
Mr.
book.
President.
He doesn't say it, but he says it, but I can't do it with these
Yeah,
fools
yeah.
anymore.
It
It's
really
like-
does wear down your ability to think clearly because it's just
Yeah.
you're watching two clowns in full makeup smack fight each other
It's
across the
insane.
stage.
You know, it's funny. Like I heard that people are talking about doing like a button for Chris Wallace or the moderator to like mute the other person while one person.
I said that. I don't think Chris Wallace should get the button, but I think it should just be built into the 2 minutes that they get to speak uninterrupted.
The other person
then just
can't
cut
speak,
the other fucker right out of it.
And I was saying, like, I think that that's kind of indicative of the same sort of issue that we're having with the social media, in the sense that, like, yes, I mean, obviously there has to be something done about this in the short term, but if that's all we focus on, and we're not focused more on the fact that, like, wow, we need a mute button for our presidential debate with these 2 grown-ass men.
Yeah.
3
really
grown-ass men.
Yeah.
Like, that's the problem that I'd rather discuss. We know that we're gonna need a mute button for these motherfuckers. Clearly,
we need a short-term solution, but we need to look at
the problem. The solution is not the mute button. That's just a temporary to get through whatever it is that we got to do right now.
That's what everybody's been saying. That, like, if you can step outside of just this versus that, it really put us all at a huge detriment.
It's a big clownery.
Yeah, like, we all look like fools if this is how our presidential is ran. Because, I mean, look, we're averagely intelligent dudes, and we can have a more open and discussion and lay out our ideas better than these 2 schmucks can.
We might all be as different as those 2 guys are on a lot of issues.
Yeah.
And
100%.
I have never
100%.
on camera seen us devolve into anything that chaotic and embarrassing.
Yeah.
Like right now, if they put the 3 of us on stage for presidential debates and one of us, 3 of us were trying to be president, do you think we would devolve into childlike?
No, because I just beat you with my ideas and my, like,
or
eloquent
we would try to beat
ability
each other with ideas and eloquent
but I don't
abilities.
need to, like, run you down or cheap shot you or talk shit on you. You know what I'm saying?
Tell you to
even
shut
if I'm gonna
up.
talk shit,
it's a loss of humanity.
Right. It's crazy in the sense of, like,
it lacks decorum.
Well, it's a lack of maturity.
It is a lack of maturity from the president. Like John likes to say,
and
these
the
people
fucking
got
vice
codes
president.
to your nuclear weapons. And
Yes.
that's a
Yeah.
like, could you imagine these fools
like playground fights.
negotiating with a dictator or a terrorist? Like, you know what? Shut up, man. Shut up. Like, you know what? You're just a racist.
Listen here, Jack.
No. You know, it's like, what are you doing?
China.
Like, y'all,
The print, like the king of Saudi Arabia said something, and Trump leans. It's like, you just lost Iran.
And a lot of people
No
are
more
pointing to the
pipeline.
fact that it was mostly Trump's fault. I mean, it's mostly Trump's fault. That
we
it was
like to point at Biden and all the silliness because he got sucked
got
in
roped
and
into
everything.
it.
He got rope-a-doped. It was like watching,
He got roped
in
into
this
it.
analogy, Trump is Muhammad Ali.
Yeah.
Biden is
And he just
Put-
he just walked right in.
put whoever you want to put in there. Somebody got beat the shit out of them or got their shit beat out of them by Muhammad Ali. But it was like Trump rope-a-doped him.
Yeah.
Trump was like, luring him in, saying these things like your son's a cokehead, saying these things, about drug tests, all these wacky things.
Yeah.
And Joe Biden bit.
Yeah.
He bit. And it's like, yeah, we can laugh at Joe Biden and say what a terrible debater and he fucking lost. But Trump is the problem in this bigger equation.
Well, because they were all bad. Like,
they
even
were all
Chris
bad.
Wallace was terrible, right? But that's what I felt was such an easy strategy for Biden, in the sense of, you just shut up and just let the idiocracy play out between these other 2 right here.
Yep.
You look like the mature, intelligent one. Lay out your ideas, fight back. But instead, he just, he devolved.
He got
it's what they
he
always
went to
say,
their
like,
level.
take the high road. And he did not. He
Trump
fell
brought
right down
everybody
to-
down to his level,
Yeah.
and at that
And then
level, when
whooped
everybody's
their
down
ass
there,
down there.
Trump looks great.
But
When
I
he
think
comes
that-
down there, that's where he thrives.
I think that he actually played this all wrong. I think he played this all wrong. He did the same thing that he did in 2016, which worked. So I'm not, blaming him for it. But I personally,
Trump.
I think he did this all wrong. Like, I don't think that this is actually a win for him. I think because of the fact that Joe Biden's head didn't explode and he didn't make some sort of ridiculous gaffe, and all he did was just get caught up in the little foo-foo games that Trump did. But he actually, like, I felt like he was, like, right there with it. Like, he didn't, like, beat him up or anything, but he at least didn't just, like, pass out.
He didn't sound like what he's
like
been
an
led us,
incoherent
like we've
person,
been led to believe.
So I was like, okay, well, he actually sounds like somebody who's not losing their mind in this from the clips that I've seen. And I was thinking that really what Trump should have done is what you were saying that Biden should have done. I think they both really should have done this. Let the other person make a fool of themselves.
Well, yeah.
Let Biden say some dumb shit, but he was like talking all over him just like he did Clinton. But not everybody hates Biden like they hate Clinton. They don't think anything about Joe Biden.
Yeah.
They're just like, oh, Joe Biden.
Well, here's where the straw man falls apart when Trump says Joe Biden has dementia or infers he has dementia and that he's got no energy and that he can't get up there and string sentences together and that he's a puppet of the far left. And then Joe Biden gets out here. He had an opportunity to prove all that shit wrong.
Yep.
He did not prove all that shit wrong. He proved a little bit of it wrong. He strung his sentences together pretty well, but he didn't sound demented.
No, well, I think Trump just brought the standards too low for Biden.
Yeah.
He just made them so low that Biden basically had to just continue to remain alive on stage.
Oh, that's a good
and it was
point,
going
too,
to
yeah.
be good.
As long as he wasn't demented.
Because he was
and
gonna, yeah, he
lost.
was saying that he was gonna have to be doing coke in the bathroom during the debate, and I was like, "What are you talking about? Just be like, you should be playing him up so that way when he comes out there and says some dumb shit, he looks like an idiot."
Well, this is the fundamental. I think this gets down to the fundamental core problem of this whole situation right here, right? The fact that this is what we're even talking about,
Yeah.
right? Like it's literally not about the ideas.
No,
it's not
yeah.
about the
Policies,
policies or
yeah.
anything that you're gonna implement or nothing. It's just who's the less clown-ish.
Yeah.
You know,
It's
like,
also
who's the-
sound bites. It's, like we
who's
keep
least
talking
clownish.
about fake news and clickbait.
Yeah.
Sound bites.
Yeah.
Like, why do you think Trump tried to, with the Hillary in 2016 where it was like, because you'd be in jail.
Yeah.
Classic one-liner, boom, psh, all it
Yeah.
needed was a little fucking drum roll, and that would have been,
Yeah.
smack down to the year.
Share everywhere, right?
Yeah,
He got
so-
owned her. But that's what I'm saying. It's not about anybody healthcare. Did anybody remember
we're
what
gonna
their
talk about
healthcare is?
student debt. We're gonna talk
Policies,
about
like, are they gonna, did anybody hear anything about
COVID-19?
what they're actually going to do for you as an American citizen? Like, even in the sense of, like you said, COVID, anybody hear a plan to actually do anything?
about COVID?
No,
Instead,
it's just like, you fucked it up. Well, you would have fucked it up more.
Yeah,
you
exactly.
Shifting blame.
That's basically what they're saying. Joe Biden's like, wow, you really fucked up that COVID thing. And he's like, well, it's a good thing I was in there because you would have done terribly. And it's like,
What? Like, what did you do? What are you gonna do?
Yeah, can
And
we
it's
talk
like,
about things that we're
used
going
to
to
talk
do?
about stuff like that in the debates and stuff? It was really about like who has a better plan, and then the secondary conversation was who looked better or who sounded better, or who was more influential. But on the surface of it, first though, it was like, I can't believe so-and-so wants to do this. I can't, that'll never work. But you don't get none of that from either one. Like, I can't tell you one single thing I took from that of either one of those guys, how they're going to help me in the next 4 years.
One of the biggest things in our lives right now is the mask policies. That is a huge thing in everyone's lives as we're recording this. The most talking they did about the mask policies was Trump making fun of Biden's mask size.
Yeah.
That was about
he was
the
like, he's had
extent.
the biggest mask
Every
I've ever
time
seen.
this
And
guy,
I was like,
It was
no matter where he
hilarious.
goes,
I died laughing at that.
Oh, it was.
like-
I watched it again.
I
and
didn't
it's
know
still
what
funny.
he was talking
It's
about.
still funny.
I was like, because that's right when I tuned in. Because what happened was we got back to the camper from like being at one of the parks, and I just opened up YouTube and it was like the debate live, and I don't know whose stream I tuned into, but I was like, oh, that's interesting. And I tuned in, and it was right on that point where he was like, Joe Biden's.
Every time you see this guy.
Every time you see this guy, he's got the biggest mask I've ever seen in my life, and I was like, what?
24 hours later, we
As
get the news.
Immediately as I was like logging in, that's what I'm hearing. He's talking about the size of Joe Biden's mask, and I was like, I can't do this.
Yeah.
I turned it off, and I just got the
That's kinda-
highlights, and then listened to Dave Rubin and a couple other people's commentary on it.
That's kind of what I was
right.
talking about, how things are speeding up, is because like we get all that news, we get the debate, we get all that shit happening, and then within 24 hours, Trump has COVID. And it's like, I mean, like I didn't feel my world shatter, but that seems significant.
Well, it's
seems
definitely
like-
changed what everybody was talking about online.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
we have a
definitely
month
deferred
until
away.
the election. So it's
Yeah.
like we're 30 days out of an election. Our president just got COVID-19. It seems like all those things that they talked about and that they didn't talk about matter, and all they did was yell at each other.
Yeah.
So it seems even more salient now that like we have real political discourse, which is a bit of a segue into this idea that me and you have been discussing since the debate, which is what's the answer to this political fuckery? Because that's all we just have this system that is absurd where what you see on the screen is the best we can fucking do.
Yeah.
And it's like that as an American upsets me because I'm like, we can do so much better than that.
There's so many better people than this.
Even these three averagely intelligent fucking dudes could come up with a better system than that. Come the fuck on. And I don't know. We've been really diving into that the last couple of days. That's something that
I just think it's strange in the sense of like what kind of conversation is going on in the background of how you select these candidates, and like, because like you said, I think that there's just so many people out in the world who could really have good ideas, or really even if the name of the game is not details and ideas, then there's charismatic, persuasive, well articulate people who could come on here and at least look good,
some Justin
look
Trudeau's.
like they know what they're talking about or something.
Yeah.
But instead, this is what we're presenting, and I ask myself that why? Like, what about our culture? Maybe all these things are tied together in the sense that we like this type of how polarizing can it be, or how far out can it be, because you have to wade through all the bullshit that is out there. And like you said, people don't really care about the cold hard facts. Those are boring, you know. Like, like even like you said too just a second ago, you don't want to watch it, you just want to get somebody else's hot take.
You just
on
want
it,
fast
right?
food.
Like, yeah, exactly. You want fast food, and these guys are fast food presidents, right? Like that's what it is.
This is
trash.
McDonald's and Burger King.
Like
You're looking at McDonald's and Burger King, ladies and
fighting each
gentlemen,
other on
and
the
I'm
thing.
saying we need some grass-fed beef.
Yeah, facts. And so it's very very scary to me. It's very scary to not I don't care about the people. Like I said, to me, the people, and this is something we'll talk about. I don't want to get too deep in that because I really want to do a whole episode on that, about like how we think we could maybe restructure the government.
Yeah, I wanted to put that little nugget in the audience's ear.
I'm still very much fleshing out my ideas because I don't want to come to you like a dumbass in that. But I want to talk about that, you know. But in the sense too, just for now, it's like those characters, you know what I mean? Like, why couldn't we see a better character in the sense of like, it leads me to believe that nothing actually does get done, right?
Right.
Like the fact that nobody does lay out a plan or anything.
They won't even let the libertarian candidate on the stage.
It's insane.
Well,
right?
I think that this is so funny. Like, something that points is a huge pointer to this, to the point that you're making, in the sense that I think kind of what you're touching at is that the fact that a lot of people have lost a lot of faith in it, to the point where they're not even interested in it.
Yeah.
Like the people who are interested in it have clearly become much more interested in it, and it's very a hot debate. But this is kind of what I was talking about earlier, where I felt like, yes, the things that everybody's talking about online are changing very quickly, but my day-to-day life seems to be happening the same as it ever was. You know? And so I think what's happening
I can't say
now
that right now. Like,
well, I mean, it's not like the same,
and
like in the sense, like, yes, there's masks and stuff, but really, that's it. That, to me, that's the comparison between soccer and hockey, and people are like, those are so different. And I'm like, well, on the surface, yes. Like, they're wearing different clothes, and it's
Your
on
real
different.
life is a microcosm of what's going on.
try to get a haircut.
It's not as big of a deal.
But
as it is
I
on
think
the internet.
well, I was talking COVID, obviously, but I think more just politically in general, even pre-COVID. Yeah. My life has never been super affected by the politics, which is why I don't vote. Like, it's very interesting to me, so I'm tuning into it because of like an entertainment value.
Yeah.
But it's not something that I feel like I'm really going to invest a lot of time and action in, like voting and stuff. Yeah. And I think that the reason that we see, like, people say, like, you have to make your voice heard and you have to go out and vote because otherwise you're being silent or whatever. And I'm like, well, haven't you guys ever heard of like a silent protest? Like, the fact that we can't even get 50% of the people who are of voting age in this country to vote, that's a huge thing for me. Like, that's a huge sign that
the biggest
lot
voting
of people
block is non-voters.
Don't give a fuck. Yeah, the biggest voting block is non-voters.
I wouldn't say that they don't give a fuck. I think that most people would.
But not that they don't give a fuck, but they just feel like there's not going to be anything.
They don't have representation.
Yeah, they're like, well, I'm going to go vote, and then what?
Yeah.
And because it happens over and over. You go vote, and then everything stays the same.
Right.
Or it doesn't exactly stay the same, but it stays slightly different.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, fuck, nigga. Like, you said you was going to change the whole goddamn thing. You said you was going to drain the swamp. I didn't see no swamp drainage.
It goes like this too. It's like, what are you more likely to get out and vote for? Get out and be active for? Being for something or being against something, right? So for me, it would probably be for something. Like, I don't go out and talk shit about the other teams in soccer groups.
Are you saying what you wish it was, or what?
No, I'm saying like
because people actually tend to try to fight against things more than they
I mean,
should
I put this in the context of choosing our president.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you see two candidates and neither one represents you, are you more likely to vote against the one that you think represents you the least, or just not vote? And it seems like you would probably not vote, instead of being like, well, I don't really like Joe Biden, but I really don't want that Trump guy. Like, that's what they're telling us to do. That's that's what Democrats are telling other people that are left of center to do.
Like anything but this
anything
guy.
But Trump. And what I'm trying to say is, I don't feel motivated to do to vote for either one of them,
Right.
because nobody represents any of my values.
Yeah. Well, because they're not representing anything.
They're not representing Americans at all.
Anything. They're just up
This
there.
is just
like,
two personalities.
Yeah.
Just-
And
It's
like
culture-
we're
it's
supposed to pick
yeah.
between which personality we want
Yeah.
to be in the personality
The
slot
personality
of our government.
cult. You're so right.
Yeah.
Dude.
Yeah, it's all
You're
about
so
cult of
right.
personality. And
Yeah.
so it's like that's why we're seeing an increase of like celebrities becoming presidents and running for president. And I'm like, yo, is anybody noticing the fact that we're just doing this for entertainment now?
Yep.
Like that why like
We live
isn't
in
it
an influencer culture where it's just like
My source,
whose
my
opinion
source,
do you like the
right.
best?
my source in the Instagram direct chat speaks to that, because what it is it's an article that shows all the tweets from celebrities reacting to Donald Trump's COVID-19 diagnosis. And it's like, why do I fucking care what Cardi B has to say about our president getting COVID-19?
Yeah.
But what's the first thing you see? I am Cardi B. Bet you want to wear a mask now. Sad face, sad face, sad face. Now, I'm not saying we need to have the utmost respect for Donald Trump or this fucked up system, but I'm saying, is that really what we want to tell, what our kids' heroes should be saying?
Yeah.
You know, like there's so many people out there that look up to these people, and they're just like,
somebody was saying, I seen a tweet that was like, I think it was like a reporter, it was somebody, but they were basically like, it's been against my moral being for 4 years to say this, but now I feel like I can. I hope he dies. And I was like,
yeah.
I could see why you were having trouble saying that
before.
because that's really fucked up.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you might not like him, but he is a person.
don't
You
agree,
know?
yeah,
Like,
but
and this is a great example
people who
where
you don't agree with should die.
right, exactly. And that's why I posted in my stories about that political violence thing where it was saying like there was like a poll and it was showing that over the years people are more on both sides of the like Republicans and Democrats are saying that they're more willing and accepting of political violence. And I'm like, yo, as far as I'm concerned, political violence is no different than racial violence. And anytime we become more accepting of violence in our society for any reason. It's horribly wrong.
Yeah.
It's
That's
going
a
to
net
be
loss.
totally
net loss.
bad.
That's a net
it's
loss.
a net loss for everybody.
Yeah.
Nobody wins when we get more violent at all. We've seen that over and over in history. Can we please stop making this mistake?
I just see all of our like enemies' stocks going up when that happens in America.
Yeah.
It's like China and Russia and Iran and all these nations that we don't have the best relationships with. They look at us when we have political violence and they're just like, fucking waiting, boy. They just waiting. They're loading up their fucking transport ships because they about to.
Well, I mean, we've been the big dick dogs for the whole time, for a long time now, and they're waiting to have somebody. They're waiting to catch us slipping. They're like, just let this nigga slip up one time. I'm gonna come in.
That Jimmy Kimmel one is one I wanted to point out. If you go down, it's that one there. Does anyone know why Mike Pence is running around in circles throwing little pieces of Wonder Bread in the air? It's like just openly mocking the fact our president might die.
Yeah.
And it's like they've already set the bar low by mocking our president on every single late show since before he was elected.
Yeah.
But this is pretty fucking low, man.
I don't get it.
I don't get the exact joke, but he's obviously joking about Mike Pence becoming the president.
Like celebrating somehow by throwing
Yeah.
Wonder Bread in the air that he's going to become the president.
Yeah, I guess.
And I was like and
confetti,
I told you yesterday in the drive home, I was like, I actually think that would be terrible. Like, there's no situation in which I think that it's better for the country if Trump dies from COVID.
I don't want us to kill prisoners. I don't want us to kill terrorists.
Yeah.
I don't want our president to die. I don't want anybody to die. So this idea that we should be laughing and joking about the president dying,
Yeah, we're like celebrating that
it just seems
I guess,
distasteful.
I guess it seems like, but like you said, everybody's emotionally like they're not thinking rationally about the
Right.
situation. They're just emotionally reacting. Like you said, like, yeah, that's right, fuck him, ha ha, or whatever.
That guy hates you, dude. Don't you hate
fuck
him?
Yeah, exactly. So
he wants to see you dead. Really?
That we're mirrored in our that our political candidates kind of mirror our own thing. Because to tie it back a little bit to the social media thing. That's something that me and you've gotten into heated debates about, right? Where I'm like, it's the algorithm's fault, and it's like, yeah, but you also use the algorithm, right? Like the algorithm doesn't just make up everything you like. It's your inputs and your use of the machine that calculates and it spits out.
You are
its own,
complicit,
but it's a thing.
It's a two-way thing because you're right. They do make them intentionally more addictive.
Mm-hmm.
Like I am very aware of that. But I think that that's kind of the same as like advertising. Like advertising does that. Rural Colorado does not give
no
a
fuck.
No,
I came from rural North Carolina, buddy.
Like,
I gotcha.
Nobody
They're
out there
not
gives a
going
fuck.
down, dude.
And so it's like, but
when we were out in the Northwoods,
they have the signs though.
When we were out in Northwoods of Wisconsin, it was like places where it was specifically like, yo, we ain't fucking with masks.
If you got a mask on, take that shit off.
Take that shit off.
They were just like, if you don't like it, don't fucking shop
Bitch,
here.
boy,
But,
take that fucking mask off, boy.
Like, they just don't care.
It was
But,
so
I mean,
funny.
feel
I walked
that-
into this bowling alley behind our RV park, and it said on the thing, mask required. So I put my mask on, I walk in, and I'm looking around, and there's nobody really wearing masks, but there's a lot of people at tables too. So I was like, well, I guess if you're at your table. But then I quickly realized, I was looking around, I'm the only person with even like wearing a mask at all. Like not just over your face, but like nobody even has them on their person.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay, well, I see what's going on here. And then I asked the guy, he was like, oh yeah, we legally to be open, we have to have that sign on the door. But he was like, obviously nobody comes by and like checks or anything. And so yeah, like they're ticking the box. They're ticking the box to make sure that they can do same thing with the bars
or
and
anybody,
restaurants.
anybody, yeah.
Like right now, if you're serving food, you can be open, but you can't just serve alcohol. So if you serve fries and that's the only thing you got, you could technically be open because you're technically a restaurant. And
this
it's like
is why I'm never for the voting of regulation to solve our problems. Right?
Yeah.
Like it said, like I don't think the problem of social media or any of things is solved by regulation because that's what people are gonna check. I gotta sit outside, fine, and they just move their whole store outside. Doesn't give a shit. It's not like really distancing anybody or anything. Like you said, I mean, people are out in Texas. You can go to the club, you can go to bars and stuff as long as you got a mask on. It's like whatever. And it's like, you know, it's a clown game, and people are always going to try and find a way to circumnavigate it or get around it to do whatever they want, period. Because it does work in a sense, right? It does work in a sense. So, for example, when we were talking about, I only wear a mask because people make me, right? Flat out. Like, that's just my personal choice. Yeah. I just don't care. Like, I'm here for it. It's whatever. But since they make me, I do it. But as soon as I don't have to, that shit comes off, you know? And so it's like you can't really regulate me into
the little person that you want me
to be, right? Like I'll do whatever I got to do to play the dance, but outside of that, it's like it's not really effective in swaying people's mentality of like trying to help or trying to change or trying to fix something.
I've felt it pull on me before, where I've had like a little tug at me because like, you know, it's really hard as an averagely intelligent person to know everything about everything that's going on with COVID-19. We can all
with anything as we're learning.
We can speculate, but like if you held a gun to my head and said, do you think a mask helps you during COVID-19 or not? And like, I wouldn't be able to give you a straight answer because I just don't know enough. But I've felt the social tug by going into a place where I knew I was going to go into this gas station multiple times and going in and seeing like, okay, I'm wearing a mask because it says wear a mask. And like, I look and the guy behind the counter is not wearing a mask. And I'm like, man, that guy behind the counter probably interacts with a lot of people, you know? And if this is real, he's taking a risk by not wearing a mask. Should I come back in here or should I go to another gas station? What amount of like convenience do I lose? What if I only have to go just across the street, right? I'm probably going to go across the street if everybody across the street is wearing masks. So I felt that social tug of like, maybe this is real. Maybe it's fear-based because maybe this is real and maybe I am putting myself more at risk by going to this other gas station. So maybe I should change my routines. So I felt that tug, and I don't know what the right answer is. I don't think any of us do, but they are influencing me.
Yeah,
they are influencing me. They are making me judge other people. Like not making, but they're
You're inclined to do that.
I'm inclined to judge people now and their businesses based on what kind of risk they take, whether or not that risk is real.
This is why net loss every time you try and bring violence into this situation, right? Because and you were talking about this a little bit too about voting against or for it. Like that's my thing. Like personal choice here. Given all the statistics and all the things, I don't know. You don't know either. You know what I mean? We're all just trying to make the best inference we can. And so this is my personal choice. But I despise when other people out there like, oh, I can't believe you'd wear a mask, or like trying to sway other people.
I can't believe you made that personal choice.
Yeah, to not do it or to do it. Like if you want to wear a mask, if you don't want to shop at the store, if you want to stay at home, like you take whatever level of precaution you feel like you have to.
Need. Yeah,
like that's what every single human does in their own life. Some people go skydiving, other people don't. Right?
Yeah, risk assessment. When you walked out that door without your key or without your phone, you thought about it. You made a risk assessment.
When we all do that, and we're all constantly judging that, and so we're all going to make our own choices, and that's where I'm at with it. I'm like, look, if you want to make that choice, then that's fine, but you shouldn't have death. Like if some, like, you know what I mean? Like the idea that, oh, he didn't wear a mask, so now he deserves death. Right. You know, it's like you didn't listen to the propaganda that was spilled out everywhere, and then you got the disease. Like, look, people are getting the disease. People wearing masks, people still getting the disease. Everybody's gonna get, you know what I mean? Like, you don't necessarily know why or how. You can't sit here and infer and make all these conjectures of like, well, if he had wore a mask, he wouldn't have got it or some shit. It's
like that lady in that interview you showed us, the ABC lady. It was just like the number of inferences she made, and the fact that she was like, they were like, well, what's happened since? Have you talked to the Ohio Center where they held the event? And she's like, I contacted the Biden team. Yeah. And, you know, they, and I'm like, well, you know,
and they told me all of these things about the Trump people. Yeah.
And she was a guest of the Biden campaign too. So it's kind of like all these layers of Bernays sauce. They're in there. And if you dig deep enough, you can find them. Yeah. But the average person watching that would be like, that poor woman who is subjected to that viral load.
Yeah. Dude, man, it's so weird too. Like, it's also, you kind of touched on it, but it's like it's not even about really even doing the thing. It's just saying the right things. Yeah. Dave Rubin kind of talked about this in his reaction to the debate. And he kind of talked about the fact that, like, Chris Cuomo came out the next night, or maybe later on that night on TV, and was like talking about how ridiculous it all was and everything, and after he got COVID, Chris Cuomo was like, oh, well, you know, like, it just goes to show, you know, if you're not taking it seriously and stuff like that. And it's like, bro, you had COVID. You're on video almost getting into a fist fight with one of the people who lives in your city. Yeah. And you had COVID at the time. You were like out with your family. So, like, what are you talking about? Yeah. Like, it's so weird to me. And I think something that I wanted to bring up earlier when you were talking about the fact that you can't regulate people into being who you want them to be. Mm-hmm. But, like, Thomas Sowell has this quote where it's like, if you give people wiggle room, they're going to wiggle. Yeah. They're going to wiggle. 100%. They're going to wiggle right out of your shit. And so it's like, it's so funny that we play this game where we're trying to, like, make people, you kind of talk about it when you hit on your point about how we're all super nasty out here, and we're just pretending that we're like civilized human beings, that we don't do all this,
but we're in there
shit.
Wiggling.
But it's so funny though, because we all know it's super normal. Like, we all know that all of us are all playing with ourselves all the time, and yet we all pretend like that doesn't happen. And it's like, what world
we try to deny human nature, man.
We try to deny that we are still
animals.
These animals, like, we haven't evolved to the point where we can override those drives and stuff like that. So it's like so funny to see. I kind of talked about it yesterday, but like the amount of work that people go through to live in the reality that they want to live in, rather than the one that they're seeing in front of them.
They set up these regulations like you got to be over 18 to view porno online. And we wiggle right out of that. Because, like, the analogy I see when you say wiggle room and wiggle and stuff, I see, like, you know, as a former Apache mechanic like Rod, I see you tighten something down. If you don't tighten it down enough, if you don't really lock that shit in, it's going to vibrate. And when it vibrates, what happens to a nut or a bolt? It vibrates right the fuck out, bro. That vibration is what makes all that happen. If it wasn't vibrating, if there wasn't that wiggle room and it was locked in tight like Nazi Germany, you might have people lockstepping. If you're in North Korea, they might be lockstepping. You might not have any wiggle room. Yeah. But
in a free society where we're allowed to make our own choices and our own decisions.
It's going to vibrate.
But it's just that, though. It's like the idea of rules. We're all rule breakers to a certain extent. You rationalize it however you want to. It says no parking here. Well, I'm not going to park. I'm just going to run in real quick, right? And so but that is breaking the, you know what I mean? Like, we're all going to do that as humans. You create a rule, and hence why you end up with a president who's a millionaire, billionaire, whatever the fuck he is, but he's only paid $750 in taxes.
Don't pay shit in taxes.
You know what I mean? If the loophole is there and you know about it, you're gonna take it. Somebody says, "Hey, do you want to pay?" Like I said, my favorite example. I'm not gonna go there. My favorite example: who sent their Trump bucks back? When they were like, hey, here's $1,200 to help you. Who out there was like, oh, I don't need the help, thanks, you know, and sent their money back to the government.
No, I'm not taking that money because I believe, like, people were getting on me when I was talking about what I bought with my Trump buck. They were like, I thought you thought tax was theft. And I'm like, and here they are giving some of it back to me, and you want me to give it to them again? What are you talking about?
But still, my point is, whatever side you're on, if you think it's right or wrong or anything, you took the money. You took the money and you smiled, you ran down.
You're like, hey, shit, a free $1,200. A lot of people didn't even think about it as like, relief money.
Yeah.
They were like, oh, dude, I just got a free $1,200.
$1,200.
What do you do with free money? You blow that shit.
Yeah, they blew it. But my point was, it's just like, that's a wiggle. That's you're always going to take advantage of these loopholes, regardless of it's almost it's capitalistic in a sense. So that's why I say capitalism is that it's the ability to capitalize on things.
Right.
Dude, it blows me away. Every store you go to in the front now, on the right there at the register, what are they selling? Hand sanitizer,
And
masks, fucking whatever,
gloves.
face shield, anything, because that's the hot topic at the moment, so we're gonna find some way to profit off of.
You remember
that.
when it was fidget spitters? Oh
Yep,
my
I
god!
remember
What a simpler time, internet!
Yeah,
what
I
a
remember
fucking
that.
simpler
Great.
time.
And that shit
Facts.
said straight up. So, the other day, not gonna lead anybody into their own inferences here. I feel like I have to set so many parameters to have this conversation, and that's what's tough about it, because it's like I want to spin it.
Well, naturally. I'm sorry, naturally.
Yeah, that's a good point. Is like whenever you're talking about a conflict between you and someone else, you're always going to want to be like, now first of all I'm right. So let's all start off on the same playing
and
field.
That's the funny thing is, but that's not where I want to spin it. But I want to spin it to the sense like I want to frame it right, because I there's a lot of conversations that can come about from this, and that there's a particular conversation I'm trying to have. But then I almost feel bad doing that, just given the same conversations we just had about media doing that all the time and why it's trash.
Well, I think it's because I am so much of I wish I knew what the term for this is. I'm sure it exists already, but I'm like a situationalist.
Yeah.
So like I think that I do have principles and stuff like that, but they're not like set in stone. Like I think that it really depends on what, like my answer, like I say, the most correct answer to any question is it depends.
Yeah.
So like I think that for a news organization, like if you're going, like kind of what John was upset about with the John Stossel thing in our previous episode, he was like, well, this guy is presenting himself, like to him it looked like he was presenting himself as like a news, like this is actual factual information.
He's a former news anchor too. For
He's
Fox
a former
Business.
he's a former news anchor, yes. And so he was. I think that when you're looking at something like a news organization, you have expectations of them, whereas the expectations were set about this podcast when we came on here.
Averagely intelligent.
We're averagely intelligent dudes discussing dangerous ideas, which is basically we're three guys who talk about whatever we want to talk about.
Yeah, facts.
So I think that's what there's expectations that were previously set for a news organization, and those are now not being fulfilled. And I think that that's kind of what the problems. Like I definitely agree. Like there was an expectation that was set by the Constitution that has not yet been fulfilled. But I do think that we're making our way there slowly, albeit.
I think we're getting further away from the idea of having like actual news, or like
the news part.
reporting.
I think about the Constitution. I think we're getting
closer, but
the news thing we're fading away.
Yeah, we're getting further away from that. It's just really going to come down to in the future, who do you believe and who are you going to listen to?
Well, which frames your conversation, where it's like, who are you going to believe and what are you going to listen to?
What are you going to
because if you're not, if you're going to look at just statistics, then you have to leave out personal anecdotal evidence. Or I remember I still don't have a full grasp of this thought, but I remember driving across this country and thinking about a rebuttal to facts don't care about your feelings.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Ben Shapiro's old line.
Yeah, and it's like I hadn't listened to anybody else like rebut it or anything. I just had this thought in my head, and I'm gonna try to get it out. But it was something along the lines of like, within those facts, are feelings. I don't know how better I can.
That's
get
true.
that
I mean,
out.
like because what you're pointing to is the idea that facts are not just numbers. There are people behind them.
Yeah.
Like there are literally lives a lot of the times behind them,
or stories. Like if you just point at the crime rate and say this percentage of people are this race and they commit this much crime, which is disproportionate, you are not factoring in anything that happened in the past that led those people to be in a position where they do commit more crime. You're just saying based on the color of their skin.
Right now, what we see is that they commit more crime.
Yeah,
right?
and you could point to the statistic and say, there it is in black and white. You may hate it. You may think that, like you may disagree, but facts don't care about your feelings.
There's a story that revolves around this.
And I feel like those statistics have actual, like fully fleshed out, like you said, stories. I think of it more like, there's there's so much more at play than the number.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think that there's
layers to this shit.
There's layers to this shit. That's how I feel about it, because I think that there's actually, obviously you can't talk about like the stories and the human aspect. Obviously that's very removed from statistics, unfortunately. But I do think that the problem is that people look at a number like the crime statistic that you were talking about, like hypothetically, if you look at that statistic on its face, you could say, like you said, in black and white, XYZ. But actually, there's a whole slew of other statistics, other things that we do track that make that number what it is. And like you said, there's like levels to it. Like underneath all that is like kind of like the statistical math, if you will, of how you get to X group.
The humanity of the numbers.
Right,
the humanity
exactly.
of the numbers.
Well, I think the thing of that plays in. I mean, you really brought up a good point too, in the sense of like, well, how did those numbers come to be about? But I think the big problem, and what Ben Shapiro is trying to say with that whole slogan is, a lot of times when you're talking about those numbers and stuff, you're talking about society and culture as a whole, and then your specific experience with this, whatever you're talking about, doesn't necessarily correlate to the whole, though. Yeah. And that was kind of the conversation I was having here. So I got to premise that because, I mean, we're going in deep to pretty much essentially the conversation that I had today, or not today, a couple of days ago. And so I got into this weird debate with this girl on the internet in the DMs, and I totally didn't mean to do it. And there's a lot of different things to talk about here. But so it all started with, I see this post, and it was like on TikTok, there was a TikTok post that said, what would you do if men didn't exist for 24 hours, right? And they were like, this is the comment section. And then it was just, screenshots of all these comments. And it was like a lot of just, would we assume are females, who knows? But they were just like, I jog at night without AirPods, or I'd be able to go outside at 3 a.m. without being afraid. And like, the general consensus was I'd be able to go out at night, run, jog, listen to headphones, not have to carry mace, and I could do that without anxiety.
Or fear of being attacked.
Or fear of being attacked, right?
Which it points to the idea that like women don't really attack other women, men do.
Right.
But it's just at face value, it's pretty true.
But now the statistics will support the fact that men are the more violent of the two genders. Like almost 90-something% of all violence comes from men. Right. Yeah. So I get that, and I feel what they were saying, But I just proposed this idea. I said, hey, well, last year there was about 1 million something sexual assaults reported and this and that. Let me actually say what I said here, because I don't want to misrepresent the conversation like she did. But no. Okay, I said in my response to this. Now, like I said, I saw this in this person's stories, and my response was the plight of a generation that grew up watching too many murder shows. There were less than 1 million sexual assaults in 2019. That means you have about a 0.285% chance of being assaulted. My heart still goes out to them, though. Right? Because my heart does go out to them because of what John was just talking about, right? Is like behind that number is 1 million people who were actually sexually assaulted. Yeah. And that is tragic and terrible. And I'm not trying to sit here and diminish that, right? But I guess the way that I came across was that I was trying to say rape's not a big deal, is the way that it was like,
the way that she took it.
Yeah, and
this is a great, which just points directly to we don't get to tell people how to interpret our text.
Oh, yeah.
I hate that.
Yes,
I hate that our text doesn't have any sort of inference.
Yeah.
And that's why people use italics, or they use fucking asterisks.
You try and do something.
And you do it capitals and all these other things to try to put your inference in there. Yeah. But they still get to interpret. It's like a fucking work of art, and I fucking hate that about text.
It's very strange.
What you're trying to say and what you're saying could be construed as anything. You could look like a shithead coming in to make a fight about rape, or you can look like a guy who's just saying, hey, rationally, yes, be careful. There's risk in everything, but you shouldn't think that the only time you could ever go outside is if men didn't exist.
Yeah, right.
Because and also to make it a male-female issue is to say that my fear isn't valid when I think to myself, I can't wear my fucking second earbud when I walk at 3 a.m. to the Walgreens because I might get attacked probably by another dude.
Yeah, you're afraid.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because that's also another number that we can bring in here, is that not only do most violent crimes be committed by men, but they're also perpetrated on other men.
Yeah. Same with rape and sexual assault. There's a very large statistic there. Being ex-military, me and Rod know a lot about that kind of training.
But we're going into the part of the conversation I didn't want to go into, which is
why?
I don't want to talk about the efficacy of whether or not, men are raping people out, like, because that is what it is. It's just a different conversation. This is just the premise of the conversation that we got into. And so she comes back and she says, somebody gets honked at every time I walk outside. I can't relate. Probably for the same reasons that nearly 80% of rapes and sexual assaults go unreported, according to the Justice Department. And so I spit out, I said this line, I guess I can't relate, because I can't, I'm 6 foot tall male or whatever. And I was like, but fear is fear, whether rational or irrational, and that shit sucks. And then that I guess inflamed this conversation even more, because now it's like, it was misconstrued that I'm calling your fear irrational or whatever, right? Or that I'm saying that you don't have anything to be afraid of or something like that, which I guess I kind of was, you know what I mean? Like, looking back at it, I kind of was trying to say that, in the sense of, like, it's not as big of a fear as it. You don't have to walk out with that kind of fear. It's not really happening.
If somebody comes to you with a fear
that often,
if somebody comes to you with a fear, you're going to tell them you can beat it, and you're going to tell them it's not real, because that's who you are. That's what Rod the Planner does.
That's what I do. Right.
That's what you do. You're almost like a life coach. Like, you get out there and you be the best version of you. Right. So that's you being
trying to
And
100% be who I am, which is like I would tell you anything: fear of flying, fear of COVID-19, fear of anything.
This is what you told me about homeless people.
Yeah.
This is word for word what you told me about homeless people, and it changed my life and all of my interactions with them since.
Because it's 100% a true thing, in the sense of, like, fear is something that happens to you internally, and essentially you fear your own imaginations and your own things that you come up with. And that's what I was.
And you manifest that shit.
You almost do. And later I spewed out some wrong statistics, of course, but then I found some right statistics. And essentially the statistics that I put out that support, it says more than half, 51.1% of female victims of rape reported being raped by an intimate partner, and 40.8% by an acquaintance. For male victims, more than half, 52.4%, reported being raped by an acquaintance, and 15.1% by a stranger. Okay, so combined, it's about 92 or 91.9% of rapes against females are committed by somebody that they know, right? Directly trying to go against this narrative that you're going to get snatched up by a stranger or something by being out in the dark at night, right? I felt like rationally this all adds up or hangs tight, right? But this person was very adamant that my statistics don't mean shit. My opinion on this doesn't mean shit, because I'm not a female and I'm a 6 foot tall male and all this stuff that, this and that. Whether or not, like,
that basically you didn't have the capabilities to discuss anything about this because you don't have the prerequisites.
Right, exactly. Like, I don't have the life experience.
Well, you don't tick the intersectionality boxes that she is requiring to have this conversation.
Yeah, it reads to me like she felt like she was invalidated, so she has to say, oh, no, my fear is valid, and I have reason to be scared, and you
and as
can't
a matter
talk
of fact,
for me.
you're actually not even valid to be talking about it right now. So it's not that I'm invalid, you're invalid.
Yeah.
But so...
You just lost the left. Sorry.
Timing. It was great timing.
So, I was trying to be very empathetic, not even necessarily sympathetic, but sympathetic too. But, understanding, like, look, this is a plightful situation. I said it straight from the get. You're afraid when you leave, even if you have something really, really legitimate to be afraid of, like there's a serious boogeyman out there getting you, that shit sucks. Or if it's just happening to your own mind. I brought this analogy to her. I said, well, if a child is afraid of a Halloween mask, am I supposed to just validate that experience? And she said, no, I would tell them that it's a costume. And I said, okay, well, that's what I'm trying to tell you right now, is that the idea that you'll get raped out here jogging at night is a costume, right? Not trying to say that rape doesn't happen. Not trying to say it doesn't suck. Not trying to say you suck it up, kids. You don't got nothing to be worried about.
It does happen to strangers, but
it happens.
But in 90% of the cases, it looks like it's an acquaintance.
It's somebody that you know. So this
not the
idea that's being proliferated, or not obviously, but in this instance against this TikTok, the idea that's being proliferated that you can't jog at night with headphones, that is something straight out of a movie, right? And so, I mean, like, that's an idea you're getting straight out of a movie. And so all this goes in. But the thing that really, I was okay having this conversation. I was just like, all right, she sees it one way, I see it another way, and she was very much adamant on the idea that I was just being a clown because I don't know what I was doing necessarily, but I wasn't empathizing with her in the way that she thought it should be seen or done or whatever. And so then she proceeded to take bits and pieces of the conversation that we had, screenshot them, and post them on her stories.
As you do.
as
is done.
As is often
done.
Right? And now she was quick to point out that I should be grateful that she didn't call me out directly, and didn't say my name or anything like that. She whited it all out. But whatever, that's beside the point, right? But the thing that was crazy to me was she just framed the whole conversation in a way that was like, look, this dude's over here trying to talk down on women being raped.
Yeah,
right?
he's like trying to say he don't think that women get raped
out here, right? Exactly. Yeah,
women's fears aren't valid.
Rape's not yeah, exactly. All these things. Rape's not a big deal is what he's trying to say. I'm like, no, I'm not saying any of that. I'm not saying any of that. I even made myself repeatedly clear. I was like, look, I'm simply talking about this TikTok narrative that was established here with these comments that you can't go jogging at night. That's just doesn't have any statistical foundation behind it, right? Like that's just an idea that people are perpetuating in the culture. And this idea that you can't be afraid of things like clowns, for example. People are afraid of clowns. Why? Why would you ever be afraid of what does a clown do to you that justifies fear? There's nothing unless you're gonna say it, or a movie or some type of idea you have. Like there's one time that there was a clown out there who was a serial killer, but that doesn't make a clown a rational fear.
Well, I think your Halloween mask analogy works in some ways because if you look at the mask over the person's face is the fear that if you go outside around men are going to attack you.
Yes.
Men you don't know.
Yeah.
Men.
Are just gonna grab you up and
so that's the Halloween mask. And underneath the Halloween mask is like, the people that are close to you that are your acquaintances or who you need to be careful for because they're the ones that usually assault women.
The people is more likely to
the
happen.
The cat calls and that kind of thing, as long as you're mitigating the risk as a human being, should be not necessarily the same between men and women, but there's going to be a correlation.
Well, because there was another thing too, but I think that's something that you personally feel as a male, right?
But I'm saying like
I was like, well, I'm scared too at 3:00 in the morning jogging with my AirPods in, But
I'm saying the underlying person underneath the Halloween mask is that people do get attacked.
But yes.
But you can mitigate that risk, and it's not necessarily.
I wouldn't say that they're necessarily underneath that mask, but the idea that was the idea that they're rational and irrational fears, and that's a real thing. That's just a real psychological thing, and so. But the strangest part was that she clips it all this and she reposts it just so that everybody would be like, wow, what a dick. Isn't that you were right, man. This dude is a super asshole. Just to get confirmation bias in this I wouldn't even call it an argument or debate.
Yeah,
maybe
look how right I am. I'm dunking on you.
Right. And literally clipped out. I said, well, why didn't you just post it? First I said typical, which it is typical, like you said, right? But then it was like, why wouldn't you post the whole conversation then? And it was like, well, I don't have time to post the whole conversation. Like that'd be 30 stories. I just want to post the part that, gets everybody to say, yeah, you're right. And this is how we're interacting with each other, with the media, with social media. Not all of us, but some of us in the sense, like, I learned things. I learned things from that conversation. I don't feel like looking back at the conversation, I was like, you know what? There's a lot of things I was wrong about in this sense, like in the way that I was presenting the information and thinking about the whole scenario and stuff, but the other person told me flat out that my statistics are irrelevant. Then watching some of the comments come back to the thing, it was like, who says that there was only one? And I didn't say only because the 1 million is a big deal. I didn't say only, but they were just like, who says that only 1.4? It should be 0. Goes back to the whole all y'all are nasty type situation or that people wiggle. I'm like, y'all are completely denouncing the idea that some people are bad out here.
You live in a fake world where people don't exist that do these things.
Yeah.
Like.
And it's crazy how
in the real world people do these things. We might not be rapists.
Yes.
But are there rapists out there?
100%.
You bet your shit there is.
And like I said, is 8 out of 10 people a rapist? No. But does that mean that there's 1 out of 10 out there that are? Yes. Like they're out there. But it's just your interpretation. The oddest thing about this whole conversation is that you have this picture of the world, right? And you have this idea of how you think the world is, or that this issues are, or you think that Biden's this way or Trump's that way, or this is how it went down or whatever. And when we are sifting through all this information, the fake shit, the new shit, the everything, we're always constantly looking at it through this lens of, I want to maintain my status quo. It's never to try to change your opinion on it or to openly assess the information. It's like you just want to be proven right. And then you complain about the algorithm and say, well, the algorithm, they don't, but the algorithm only shows me what we want. Yeah, because that's you as a human. You only want things you want. You don't go and look for the other side's information. Yeah. You get locked into a pro Biden or a pro Trump or any type of pro anything. Yeah. Rape is a big deal. This is that or that's that, and then it's just no matter how the information's presented, you spin it up. Like you said, we can all watch the debate and then spin it up to be however we want it to be to confirm our own bias.
I love that you said that you learned from the conversation.
I did.
And that's kind of the key to having a discussion about dangerous ideas.
Yeah.
Because that's a dangerous idea
100%.
to be discussing with her. I mean, no matter who she is, you're just DMing on a social media platform. So it's, that could be anybody.
Yeah.
So, it's kind of dangerous because you're not face to face. They can't see what, anyways. But the point I'm trying to make here is that, you're going to grow from those.
Yeah.
And we need to do those.
We need to have that.
And as Max said in the beginning of this too, where it's like personal responsibility versus, it's designed to be addictive, but come on, that, like, be aware of it. Like, you're going to have these dangerous conversations. Be aware that you're going to grow from them. So be open to grow. And that is key. That's something key. That's helped me a lot in especially as a writer, taking writing advice. Let me tell you, you need to be able to accept when you are wrong and grow from your terrible mistakes. So
it's so true because and it's weird too because in another situation that's very similar is like the kids getting like nabbed from a park. Yeah. If they're not being supervised or whatever.
Yeah.
Like we see that a lot in movies and TV and stuff like that, but that really doesn't happen that often. It doesn't
really happen like that.
Almost ever, really.
Like even when you're human trafficked, you're often trafficked by somebody you know. It doesn't happen
and
like strangers.
The weirdest thing though is that they will actually arrest people. Like I remember not too long ago there was a story of a woman being arrested because her daughter was at a park. Not really by herself. Like they tried to make it seem in all the stories that I read about it that she was by herself at this park, which wasn't true. She was actually there with other kids whose parents were there. Her parent wasn't there. And so they arrested her mom and were like trying to charge her with like endangerment of her child because she didn't have anywhere for her to go when she was at work. And she was like, and I just thought to myself, I was like, what kind of a person does something like this where you take somebody who's like you said, you have this preconceived notion in your head that like it's so dangerous for children to be left unsupervised outside because they're going to get snatched up by some weirdo, that we will literally separate this child from her parent because she did that.
Yeah.
And it's like, and they'll do it for rape too, which is like the whole problem, I think, with the campus, like the whole problem with campus rape and like a lot of these like drunk women would wake up and then accuse the guy they woke up next to of rape or whatever. And like the school was, I mean, a lot of people conjectured that the school was just trying to save face and they were like, all right, well, we're just expelling this guy. And like, we have to be able to, like John was saying, look at the other side. Because if you're not and you start becoming violent against it or vehemently opposed, then you're going to rationalize yourself into some very, very horrible mistakes and things that will do a lot of harm to a lot of people because you're not really thinking about what it is that you're doing. And it's very important to think through those things.
I think that's true because I always try to remind myself that there's my perception and then there's a reality, right? And both of those things are malleable, right? Reality isn't always what it seems, but my perception isn't always what it seems either. And I think that's why I'm always trying to approach things with like an open, like I said, I don't even try and deduce a conclusion from a lot of things. I just take information in at will, right? Like I'm just like, okay, that's what he said. That's what they said. Same thing with the COVID. We talk about COVID and all this stuff and people treating people certain ways because, oh, they're doing this or that. And it's all based on this perception of what you think that disease is, right? The disease is still fairly new. It's still like there's not a lot of data out there about it. There's not a lot of like nobody really knows 100% what they're talking about or what's going on. And you're choosing always to decide who's the authority and where you're going to take your information from, what's a better news source and all this stuff. And I think if we could just all be more aware of that fact that like, look, like the way I think it is may not necessarily be the way it actually is. And so I shouldn't wish death upon somebody else for perceiving it in a different light or understanding it in a different light.
Understand that all the things that I'm putting on that person that I'm inferring they are, I'm putting on that person.
I'm inferring that.
When you say President Trump is a bigot and he hates me and wants me dead, that's why I can cheer him getting COVID-19.
Right.
That's what you're doing.
Yeah, 100%. Because you don't know that man.
You're
like,
inferring
you don't
all
know
these
that
things
man.
about him
You
that
don't know.
even if there's a chance they're true.
For sure.
There's a chance.
100%.
How do you know?
But we just don't know. That's my point.
Well, it justifies me being homicidal.
And you'll use and the evidence that you use to say, well, no, I do know is so and so on CNN.com told me so.
Yeah,
or
a Fox News report.
Yeah,
or
I saw it. I saw it on a post on social media, so I know. And it's like,
my favorite is when they say
my meme said so.
My favorite is when I think Bill Burr said this in one of his podcasts. He was like, are you just telling me that 48 million black people are just getting it wrong on this guy? And I was like, you talk to 48 million black people? I was like, first of all, where's the number 48 million coming from? Is that how many black people there are? There's got to be way more black people than that.
Yeah.
But then I was like, and even if that's all there are, how do you know that's what they think about him?
Right.
And like, even if they all do think about him that way, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's true.
Yeah,
Right.
cue Joe Biden. If you ain't voting for me, you ain't black.
Yeah.
Come on,
crazy,
now.
man.
That's the kind of
That's
clown world we
crazy.
live in,
Yeah.
where a 70-year-old man or however old Joe Biden is can sit there on the Breakfast Club, getting interviewed by fucking
Charlemagne the God,
and tell Charlemagne the God, if you ain't voting for Joe Biden, you ain't black.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That is and guess what? He didn't get canceled.
No.
Nobody said nothing.
Nobody said a
This white
word.
man saying shit about black people. He's just like talking for all black people.
Yeah.
Like he's taking people's black cards.
Yeah.
Black people will get that joke.
But it's strange though, because like you said, people are constantly doing that. They're creating their own bias off of that type of shit. Like, you know, and like you said, that gets proliferated.
It's acceptable now.
It gets proliferated.
It's acceptable.
That if you're black, this is what you're gonna do, and it's like, what? Like, you don't even know. Like, I don't know. It's strange. And I was mostly like, I feel like that's where the fear comes in from all the things we were talking about today, but mostly about social dilemma and all of that shit. When I look at it and I say, well, how do you fix it if it's not through regulation or if it's not through this and that, right? It's trying to promote the idea more to people that it's okay, not necessarily to change your mind, because that's even the sense too. Like when we ended this conversation and went on for a little while, even after the whole posting of all the DMs and stuff, it was like, hey, respect, you know, respect. Like you see it one way, I see it another way. That's bound to happen. Like that is just life.
That's
like,
good.
We need
everybody
that.
to see things different ways.
You don't deserve death. I don't deserve to get canceled.
That's
you
not
know,
good.
like all these things don't need to happen. Even when I felt like inside, I was like really pissed off and felt betrayed. You know, I was like, you essentially tried to cancel me. Like you didn't try to cancel me, but you know, you hung it over my head like, oh, I could cancel. You know what I mean, or whatever. Like
You're lucky I didn't.
I'll put you on blast.
Oh yeah, that would have got me.
It's
so
called social
bad.
media pot shots. Is what that's
I was
called.
a little frustrated with that, but I had to remind myself like I kind of expected that. You know what I mean? Or I kind of know that is possible. That's just the way it is, you know? Like, I was like, hey, I'm probably going to talk about it on my podcast too. So it is what it is, you know? But, you know, leaving that whole situation of just still completely disagreeing and me not feeling like, oh, you know, I really needed her to get what I was trying to say.
Or thinking something like she's a bad person
because she doesn't and she has a different viewpoint.
Or being like, and what the trap I fall into too, which is along the same line of like, this person's misrepresenting me. I need to make sure I'm represented clearly.
I have to correct them.
Right. Yeah. And there's all pitfalls within ourselves as humanity. And then that allows the social media to prey on us and to work us into a bubble. Like if you're not somebody who's prone to be bubbled, you know what I mean? Like I don't have a bubble. Like I know what kind of content I gravitate towards. Like I know where my biases are. Not all the time, but for the most part, I pay attention to those things. And so I know, and I'll consciously, I think we all do this, consciously try and go out against it. You know, I'll be like, you know what? I need to go hear some more pro this side of the conversation, because I done got this whole side of it up and down, left and right. I've heard every single person's take on it, and I agree. But I agree without even having heard the other side of it, you know? And it's like I should go over there and look too. And when I get new information, I don't immediately be like, oh, this fits my narrative. Yum, 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 yum.
That's the only information.
I'm like,
I don't need anything
let me
else.
fact check this.
That's you know, I don't have a lot of subjects where I see that I really need to look at the other side. But one of the ones that really cracked me open was I didn't understand the right's take on Islam. Mm-hmm. I did not understand the conservative fear of Islam, this idea of like Sharia law and stuff. Like I understood terrorism and funding terrorism. That's where I found out. Like I started learning more about that. So it was like one of these things where like I had this preformed narrative that I knew, which I was liberal, that it was like, allow these people to have freedom of religion. Why would I ever think they're an evil group of people who would wish any ill will upon me, you know? And then you start looking into other people's opinions. I remember Glenn Beck, man. Glenn Beck had this thing where he was talking about the caliphate. And it's like, it just shows you another side. Like it would be like me saying Christianity never did anything violent or evil or bad, and that they couldn't in the future. And then you showed me the KKK and then like neo-Nazi groups. I would say, okay, that's a problem. We need to make sure we solve that. And if you somehow tied that intrinsically to the core of Christian values, I would say it's even more of a problem, and we need to address that. So like, it's just the example is just an issue where I was able to kind of come out of my bias. And now I have a much more nuanced understanding of Islam and violence and jihad. And I listen to people like Sam Harris, and I seek out those types of voices where it's like, I don't want to be Ben Affleck on Bill Maher getting all flustered because you said something bad about Muslims.
You're being racist.
I want to be the guy that knows what I'm talking about. And if I'm talking specifically about jihad and holy war or something like that, I want to make sure I'm schooled up on that shit because it's a real serious thing in the world. Maybe it doesn't affect me today in my little world. Maybe it's just like my politics where it didn't really hit my bubble, but it's something I think about.
You lost me in the beginning of that when you said it was a right ideal to be against Islam or something, because like you said too, we need to not nuance just in ourselves and our, like, everything's a spectrum. We talk about it often. Everything's a spectrum. Every motherfucking thing is a spectrum. It's never binary. So even things that you think are like right ideals or right ideas and left ideas is not necessarily true, right? Like that you could find a left-leaning Democratic president who all of a sudden votes for more taxes because of X, Y, whatever. And we got to be careful not to get. That's why I was really big into like they love to lump you into groups. You know what I mean? Like you said, black people vote for Biden. Well, why would you say something like that?
Because
like,
if you ain't voting for Biden, you ain't black,
right? Like why would you say something like that? Well, it's because you want the black vote, and that is a huge group of people. You don't care about the individual person. We talked about this. We always talking about this, but you don't care about the individual. It's the statistic doesn't care about the individual. It's like you want this gigantic group, and so you try and lump them all together. Advertising does this. Your social media tries to do this. Your politics tries to do this. And I think if we all do that, all understand that we're completely nuanced. Like you might end up voting Democrat, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're a Democrat, or that you're a left person, especially like this presidency is definitely going to prove that, in a sense, like, people are going to vote for different people for all married to different reasons, mostly because they don't know, what side any of these schmucks are on. They're just like, I think this guy is safer or, less whatever. But the machine's turning against us, I feel like, personally, and it's personally turning against. Social Dilemma kind of ended with this, too, in a sense. Like, it was like, we're going to see the end of it. I even said, like, Elon Musk. Like, there's a lot of people out here who are putting out very dystopian futures. But I think what, like, my brother you're inclined to point out, it's not just because of the machines, though, right? It's not just like society's falling apart because social media and because your politics and stuff. It's us. It's like us too. It's our own nature that is leading us down that path, I believe, too.
It's how
well, it's not just us too. It's just us.
Well, because
like the social media is just showing it too. We're just seeing it through social media. We're seeing it through our politics. Yeah. But it's us. Like we're seeing all of our problems reflected back at us. I agree. Yeah. And none of us like them. And we're like, oh, we're gonna fix you guys. And it's like, no, you're putting patches on mirrors. You're putting patches on mirrors, my friend. It's the other way around.
My favorite part of this whole thing is that the analogy of it's looking right back at us. Yeah. You hold a phone and it's looking right back at you.
It's literally it's you.
It's on every level, it's you.
Like when you said you bring up that black screen, it's you looking right into it. It's a black mirror, you know? And it's reflecting back to you. You're the best of you and the worst of you. Yeah. You know, and like I said, we're all prone to do it. You know, we're all prone to do it, but we gotta fight against it.
Yeah, you don't want to manifest the shit.
Yeah. Well, you don't want to be out here, afraid of things that you don't have to be afraid of.
Yeah, exactly.
Or like you said, wishing hate and ill will upon people that don't deserve it, or don't need it.
Energy is real. Be careful how you spend that shit.
For real.
For real. That's great.
Yeah, incredible. Well,
on that note, guys.
Yeah, I guess we can wrap it up. All right, I appreciate you guys' time. Hey, internet, we love you so much and appreciate you too.
Peace
out.
Just when I think you couldn't possibly be any dumber, you go and do something like this.